Purpose of the commission is to decide applications for certificates of appropriateness for new construction or major work within the Pinehurst Historic District, and to do so by conducting hearings and making findings of fact when such applications come before us. By law, the commission is directed to take no action except to prevent construction or alterations that would be incongruous with the special character of the historic district. I'm Eric Von Salzen, the chair of the commission. I'm going to ask each commissioner, starting from my far left, to state his or her name for the record.
Thomas Schroeder.
Jerry Lurch.
John Taylor.
David Herring.
We have two members unavoidably absent. That leaves 5 of us, which is a quorum, so we can proceed. Also present are our staff supports, Alex Cameron and Kathy Lyles.
Kathy, those aren't on.
Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of our last meeting. All commissioners have been provided with copies of the draft minutes. Does any commissioner have any changes to suggest?
Move we accept as written.
We have a motion to
Second.
accept them as read. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The minutes are approved. I have a motion to enter the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. We are now in the public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. That means that anyone desiring to testify must be sworn in. And the commission is required to consider only facts presented in this hearing. The proceedings are video recorded. I ask the commissioners if they have visited any of the sites on our docket today and whether they have had any ex parte communications with respect to any of the cases we'll be considering today. Tom?
I've had no ex parte communications, and I've visited all 9 sites.
I did not visit any of the sites, and I've had no ex parte communications.
I have visited all the sites and had no ex parte communication.
I visited 8 of the sites. I did not visit One Carolina Vista, but I'm very familiar with that site. Had no ex parte communications.
Visited all, no communication.
Thank you. In each case that the commission will hear this afternoon, a staff member will first present a summary of the application. The staff's evaluation of the extent to which the application complies with the commission's standards for such an application or raises issues that require further information. The staff's comments on the application and, where appropriate, the staff's recommendations for commission action. The application and its supporting documents, as well as the staff's detailed report, will then be entered into the record. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question staff about the report and the testimony. Next, the applicant or the applicant's representatives will have an opportunity to provide any additional information supporting the application and to address any questions or issues identified in the staff testimony. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question the applicant witnesses. After the applicant's presentation, if any member of the public wishes to present any evidence, either in support of or in opposition to the application, please come forward at that time and identify yourself. I will swear you in and give you an opportunity to present any reasons why you believe that the application should be granted or denied. Please remember the commission is interested in facts that will help us decide whether the proposed work would be congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historic District. As chair, I have the right to exclude testimony that isn't relevant to that subject. I'm not required to do so. Commissioners will then have an opportunity to question these witnesses about their testimony. If the applicant or staff wishes to respond to the testimony, I will permit them to do so. We will now proceed to our first case. Ask, should we swear them in?
Well, go ahead and swear, not the first case, but
Swear in our two staff members. Will you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases on our docket today shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Schroeder has a matter he wants to raise.
Actually, I've got a couple of quick ones, and and the reason I'm raising them here is because this looks like it's going to be a long agenda, and I want to make sure that I just get these on a record. First of all, I'm going to make a recommendation that if at any other time we get 9 significant, plenty of significant cases, that we seriously consider splitting those into 2 groups and doing them on 2 different days, 9 of them, and with some of them as significant, such as the USGA one. That's a whole lot on people's plates, and I suspect it's a whole lot on the staff's plate as well. There was a discussion that came up, and I just want to read a part of our guidelines that addressed it. And the question was about the shoulds and how they apply. And I'm not reading this for discussion. I just want to go over it to make sure it's clearly stated. And it comes from page 3 of our guidelines, the 4th and 5th paragraph. All guidelines contribute to the standards of congruity with the special character of the Pinehurst Historical District, by which the HPC evaluates applications for changes, additions, demolitions, relocations, and new construction. In short, a project must meet the overarching requirement that it is congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historical District in order to approve and issue a certificate of appropriateness. The Historic Preservation Commission may at times determine that a proposed change or design which does not meet the guidelines is in fact more congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historical District if the property owner had followed more, sorry. The Historic Preservation Commission may at times determine that a proposed change or design which does not meet the guidelines is in fact more congruous with the special character of the Pinehurst Historical District than if the property owner had followed those guidelines. Conversely, an applicant meeting the guidelines may be determined to be incongruous with the character of the district. Strict adherence to the guidelines in those cases is not required if the Historic Preservation Commission clearly states on the record the reason why the proposed design or improvement are congruous or incongruous before issuing or denying a certificate. And I think is a good review. One of the other things I noticed and would like to address, but not at this meeting, is the disparity between the amount of guidelines for residential work and the complexity of those versus the complexity of the design for the commercial. We have what appears to me to be an imbalance between those two. We go through great detail on residential stuff, and then we have almost no detail on commercial. And I noted that because the one today would be, the third one in as many meetings that we've had to do. So I think we should probably, at some point in time, again, not today, address that. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to complete all of the review of all of these cases on my part. I just plain flat ran out of time. And there are 2 cases which I'm going to recuse myself of because I have not. And I mean, I could have sat here and winged it through, but I refused to compromise on the standards. So I am going to recuse myself for both 87 Short Road and 70 Maple Road. That is simply a time constraint on my part, as it was no particular determination of selection. I didn't go through and say, these are the 2 I'm not going to do. The stack had got shuffled after I pulled it out of the envelope, and those were the bottom two that I had there, and those are the two I did not get to. So I'm going to recuse myself instead of trying to wing those through. And that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Eric, if I could,
Yes.
I was just struck by the fact that we might find that a non-conforming application be more congruous than had it been conforming. I'm not sure the standard should be more congruous. Standard is congruous or not congruous. And I secondly would agree with you on the, as I think about the presentation that we received some months ago for the elementary school or the one that we've received in the past for the USGA, by their very nature, they are significantly larger and more complex. They are much more detailed typically in the application. And I'm not sure that our standards really address them in the way that perhaps they need to. Almost to the point that as a non-engineer and a non-architect, I don't even feel competent even to read through it and prepare to know that I'm really on hard ground or not.
Points that both of you commissioners have raised are, in my opinion, valid. We need to, and we are planning to, have a meeting to discuss the guidelines. The village council expects us, requires us, to provide a revised draft of the guidelines as soon as possible. The volume of cases that we have been having to handle has made it difficult to schedule a work session to do that, but we are working on it. Let me announce a change in the order of cases that the published agenda showed the USGA facility case at the end. We're going to put that first, and then the other cases will go in the order in which they are the applicants for the.
Chairman, one question. In light of Tom's intention to recuse on two cases, what used to be F and H, trying to be respectful of applicants' time, if that decision to recuse postpones a review in some way, maybe we should let the public know now.
We're still a quorum, I believe.
Quorum, and we would be able to proceed unless someone else has to withdraw for some reason. And I'm not anticipating that. Are the representatives of the applicants in the present? Would you like to come forward, and I'll swear you in, and you can sit at the witness table. How many have we got here? Three?
Well,
Four?
we have several. Would you like to swear all of them in now?
Well, if there are anybody that might speak on your behalf, I think should. And
Well, plenty of help.
why don't you put your hands down for a second and just, each of you give your name and spell your last name so we have it correctly for the record. Starting on my left, is that okay? Yes, you, sir?
Fred Belladin, Belledin.
Could we make sure if you get a mic whenever you guys state your name?
Yep, I'm sorry, that's,
John May, M-A-Y.
Rich Tedaldi, Tedaldi.
you can use either mic.
Rand Jerris, Jerris.
Bob Koontz, Koontz.
Janine Driscoll, last name Driscoll.
Brandy Thompson, Thompson.
All right, thank you all. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give to the commission with respect to all the cases, with respect to this case today, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record show that all the witnesses have responded affirmatively. You can be seated either at the witness table or behind as you present the case and the staff.
Gladly, thank you. Just a point of note that the staff presentations that the commission will receive today from both Kathy and myself are going to be a supplemental material to what you guys have already been presented with your agenda packet, and any additional supplemental testimony that's given today within this public hearing. So think of this as like a icing layer on top of the cake, and it will hit the main reason and request before you guys, the applicable guidelines, and then we'll let the applicant take their turn. So this request is for a public hearing to consider a certificate of appropriateness within the Pinehurst Historic District for new construction of 2 commercial structures located at the property addressed as 1 Carolina Vista. This proposed project is for the new USGA facility, which will include the construction of a 2-story building facility, 2 two-story building facilities to house a welcome center, museum, golf testing center, and administrative offices. The property can be further identified by Moore County PIN number 856-213-032-663. The property is the Resorts of Pinehurst, Inc., and the applicants are listed as Calvin Berkeley of Pinehurst Resorts and also Brandy Britt Thompson of Clearscapes. This is the public hearing notification map. The hatched large parcel here is the subject property. In this general vicinity near the Cherokee Road intersection is the subject site, and you'll see the listing of all the adjacent property owners that were notified of this public hearing. Standards of review, the request is obviously before the Historic Preservation Commission because according to the guidelines, all major work must be approved by the commission and new construction is considered major work. This commission shall not approve a certificate of appropriateness until the evidence presented at the public hearing meets the standards within the Historic District guidelines and satisfies the burden of proof that the proposed request is congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. General guidelines applicable to this request, Section 6B1, new commercial construction must be congruous with the existing commercial buildings in the Pinehurst Historic District and should follow the architectural tradition of 1- and 2-story structures. In regards to architectural tradition, based on the submitted material in the application packet, the proposed USGA buildings' architectural characteristics were based on elements featured at the Carolina Hotel, the 1903 Clubhouse, the current Pinehurst Country Club and Resort, the department store building in downtown, Holly Inn, Pinehurst Spa, Magnolia Inn, Casino Building, Mystic Cottage, and the old train depot. Scale and massing, based on the provided elevations, the proposed building height at its tallest is approximately 38 feet and does not exceed the 2-story recommendation of the guidelines. Based on the provided elevation, staff has identified the following architectural details with the proposal. There are multiple window styles and sizes featured on the proposed structures, which would appear similar to other windows featured within the historic district. The elevations submitted indicate that the main building will feature dormers. Dormer windows are featured on multiple commercial structures throughout the Pinehurst Historic District. Railings and balconies are proposed on the 2nd story of the museum structure, and these proposed balconies are similar with the balconies at the Magnolia Inn and the Casino Building, as well as the historic 1903 Clubhouse photo submitted by the applicant. The applicant is proposing construction of a 2-story walkway that connects both buildings, mainly the USGA administrative offices with the museum structure. Square architectural columns have been proposed as indicated on the submitted package. The building materials, the residential guidelines, as previously stated, are quite specific. However, the commercial section of the guidelines aren't very specific regarding material. Rust and copper tone standing seam metal roof is proposed. Standing seam metal is a permitted material within the historic district. The metal roof that is proposed here would appear to be similar to the metal roofing on the Pinehurst Spa and the Carolina Inn. A gray-toned fiber cement siding is the dominant siding material proposed on all elevations for both structures. And fiber cement is a composite material which offers increased durability and ability to mimic details and characteristics of wood. Based on the application, the proposed structures will feature lap, shake, and board and batten siding styles. All proposed siding styles are common options within the Pinehurst Historic District. The windows are proposed to be wood and painted white, and these windows would also appear to be consistent with other windows within the Historic District. A red brick has been proposed for the base and foundation material, as well as a patio and chimney. These proposed red brick appear to be similar to other brick within the Pinehurst Historic District. Some examples could include the majority of downtown, the theater building, Tufts Archives, and of course the Village Chapel. Site features. So with respect to proposed fencing or screening wall, the applicant's proposing a brick screen wall near the utility yard and loading dock from view. And just for reference, this screening requirement is also a requirement of the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and would meet the applicable guideline. Additions or alterations to existing landscape, including plant material, hardscape, and accessory structures, must be compatible with the architectural character of the primary structure and congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. There are existing parking areas, other landscape areas, and tennis courts within the project area that will be modified as a result of this proposed construction. The applicant has provided material for the proposed landscaping associated with this proposal. Removal of trees 12 inches in diameter at breast height and larger must not unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy and the historic appearance of the landscape. This application indicates that tree removal is included with the request, and the applicant has further provided a tree impact site plan and can provide additional material and information on the tree removal within this project at the public hearing. Here are some examples of some of the material and elevations that were provided to you guys in your packet. To the right, you'll see the proposed material and sample board, and to the left is some scale and massing. Here are some depictions of the site plan. Starting on the left, the one in the center is the tree impact plan, where they've indicated what appears to be the trees that would need to be removed with this proposal, and then a greater example of the floor plan associated with this proposal. And here are the elevations with the dimensions that were provided in the board's packet material submitted by the applicant, as well as a little bit more of a 3D renderings, including the service and utility area as is proposed to be screened with a brick wall. So at this time, staff would like to officially submit the following into the record: the staff report, this presentation, the applicant's material, and the draft findings of fact that are before the board.
It will be received without objection. I'd like to suggest to the members of the commission that we defer questions from Mr. Cameron until after we've heard from the applicants, but we would not be waiving the opportunity to ask those questions.
I've got one I think would be helpful if in their presentation and us understanding it in our presentation along with the staff answers. And that is, if there are, some of the exhibits in here have multiple drawings, multiple pages to them, and yet they're all labeled as one exhibit. So I would propose, and you may want to follow along, Exhibit E, for example, is 2 pages. I would label Exhibit E page 1. I just labeled 1. In E, the second page, I labeled 2. Just so when we refer to a page in Exhibit E, we know which, and the record would be clear as to what page we're referring to. Even more so in Exhibit F, there's like 8 different pictures of which we could easily refer to any one of, and you would only refer to them as Exhibit F. I would propose that starting with the first one, on first page, that we label the first one as E1 or F1, next one F2, F3, F4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 as you go through the exhibit. That way it makes it easier in saying, oh, you're talking about Exhibit F. Which one of these drawings are you referring to when you talk to it? So that's just a housekeeping issue I would recommend. If anybody has any objection, please let me know.
And Eric, I have one just to be sure that I have the right material in front of me. Alex, the packet that I have says the construction of a new commercial structure. This appears to my eye to be two separate buildings, although they may be part of a single project. Is that, there are two buildings here, yes?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
But I reserve for later, as you said.
I do think Tom's point is well taken in terms of trying to make it as clear as possible. Refer to exhibits, which part of a particular exhibit we're talking about, if we're talking about a specific part. Gentlemen, would you like to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is John May. I'm a local attorney with the firm of Robbins, May and Rich, and I'm here today on behalf of the United States Golf Association with respect to its desire to locate Golf House Pinehurst in the village. We are beginning the process that is required by the village's development ordinance with respect to a requested rezoning of the site, and subsequently we will be back to you and back to both the planning board and the village council with additional requests, ultimately leading to what we hope will be approval for construction of Golf House Pinehurst. The people that were introduced to you, I'm going to go back and just tell you what their roles are very briefly. To my left is Dr. Jarris. He is the Senior Managing Director for Public Services for the USGA. Janine Driscoll is Director of Brand Communications. Some of you may actually remember Janine. She worked for Pinehurst Championship Management originally and has now moved back to the area. Rich Didaldi is Head of Campus Operations. I had to ask Rich what that was. That's actually, he is in charge of the physical structures that the USGA owns. The architectural firm is Clearscapes Architects, and Brandy Thompson and Fred Baladin are the two architects that have been involved in the conceptual drawings that you have seen and will be the architects for the project. Bob Kuntz of Kuntz Jones Kuntz Jones Design is in charge of site and landscape design, and that's also part of the presentation that you'll hear from today. I don't believe he's here, but the engineering for the project's being done by LKC Engineering of Pinehurst, and Tim Carpenter is the lead person on that. As Mr. Cameron indicated, we are here today with the hope that we will provide you sufficient information for you to grant this project a certificate of appropriateness, which is the first step and a required step in requesting the planning board and the village council to approve a rezoning of this project so that the Golf House Pinehurst can be constructed. We are providing you conceptual information today. As we go back through this process, as we move forward, those will become more definitive, and ultimately there'll be plans and specifications that you'll be requested to review and approve. We're available for questions as soon as the presentation is over with, and we do want to be very mindful of your agenda, and we respect your time and would certainly want to adhere to whatever standard you set with regard to that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jarris, who's going to give you a brief overview about how we got to this point from the USGA's perspective. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, it's a genuine pleasure and an honor for me to be with you this afternoon. As the USGA contemplates its first ever extension of its campus operations beyond the greater New York metropolitan area, there really can be no better location that we can think of than to be here in Pinehurst with you. The USGA has a long and a rich history, a history that's as rich and as long as that of Pinehurst. We were established in December of 1894. And just a few months later, of course, Pinehurst was incorporated through the visionary leadership of James Walker Tufts and Frederick Law Olmsted. We've together shared 125 years of history. We've shared important individuals, important moments, the Tufts family, Donald Ross, some of the great USGA champions like Payne Stewart and Michelle Wee, whose victories we jointly celebrate. History is really important to our game. And it's really important to the USGA. It's core to our mission, it's core to our values, it's core to our identity. You won't find a better partner than the USGA, and one who has been more invested in preserving history. We've taken great care to study the history of this community. We understand the village's uniqueness, how it fits into a global golf community. We study history as a way to establish roots, to make sure that what we construct that Golf House Pinehurst will feel appropriate today, be reflective of the village's history, but will also feel appropriate long into the future. We're really excited about the opportunity that Golf House Pinehurst presents for the USGA to share its vision, to share its mission, and to share its values with your community and the many visitors that come to the Sandhills region. For us, this is about much more than just championships. It's about creating a permanent home for functions of the USGA that lead the game forward. It's a home for our scientific experts and our technical experts that serve critical roles in promoting and enhancing sustainability. It's also a place where we can connect golfers with our historical collections and share our love and our passion for the game. For us at the USGA, we really believe that our work needs to be more visible to golfers and be more present in the lives of more communities. New Jersey, quite honestly, just doesn't offer us the opportunity to touch and to share the work of the USGA. Importantly for us, we do believe that locating some of those critical functions here in Pinehurst is actually going to make them better. It's going to make us stronger as an association, because we understand that this is a community where so many people's hearts and souls are connected to the game. So many of the residents of this community are passionate about golf and intimately connected to the game. One of those aspects of our mission that we hope you see in our materials and what we present today is our commitment to sustainability and our commitment to the environment. Our game, by its very nature, a game played outside, is dependent on a healthy environment. And there are many elements of environmental sustainability woven through this project. Let me call attention for a moment just to one of those elements, and Brandy from Clearscapes will share some more detail with you. The inclusion of a pine grove and a pollinator garden in our site plan. These provide important opportunities for the USGA to demonstrate its work and its commitment to environmental sustainability. And they're just some small details in how our mission can be brought to light through this new campus. Ultimately, we're confident that the USGA's presence in Pinehurst will be mutually beneficial in many respects. We hope to deliver true value to your community, and we also know that we can be better because of you. We're confident that the selection of Pinehurst as the USGA's first ever anchor site for championships means that we can deliver tangible value back to this community in the form of economic impact, visibility, and reputation. There honestly can be no better home for USGA championships than Pinehurst. It's these type of value that's certainly been recognized by the state of North Carolina, by Moore County, in the ways they're offering support. But I think equally important for us at the USGA is the partnership with this village, with this community. And please know that we greatly appreciate all the support that this community has shown us through the years. We do have great confidence in the team that we've assembled to create and deliver this project in a way that will be respectful of this community and its heritage. Next year, we're going to be celebrating two really important milestone birthdays. Frederick Law Olmsted's 200th birthday is in 2022. Donald Ross turns 150 years old next year. As you will see, our creative team both understands and appreciates the role that these two visionary artists played in shaping this community, and our vision is respectful of their contributions. As some of you know well, the Clearscapes team is also proud of its North Carolina heritage and proud of its relationship with the village in projects beyond Golf House Pinehurst. Fred and Brandy and their team have taken great joy, and I can assure you they've taken great care and great time in getting to know the architecture of Pinehurst as they've prepared our project. Their enthusiasm for this work has been palpable from the start. We gave them clear direction. We had some outstanding input from and support from Bob Dedman to create a design that's consistent with the rich architectural heritage of the village and consistent with the high standards of the USGA. We did receive some very positive feedback from our meeting with the neighbors a few weeks ago at the Tufts Archive. I could not be more proud sitting before you this afternoon to share their work. We have great confidence in the designs that they've advanced. Let me just wrap up my thoughts with a sincere thanks to this commission and of course to the professional staff of the village who to date have been exemplary in their support of our efforts. For your consideration of our project. We're excited about the future that this project presents, and we're excited to celebrate the history that it represents. Thanks for your time, and I will turn things over now to Brandy and to Fred.
Just in order to keep the recorded record straight, if each of you would state your name again before you speak, I'd appreciate that. And I can't help you with the microphones. That's technology.
No one in my office goes to me for technological advice either, clearly. My name is Fred Belden.
Brandy Thompson.
We are thrilled to be here today as well. Brandy and I have had the opportunity to work on well over 100 historic projects with probably a dozen different state and local historic preservation commissions. And we're delighted to have the opportunity to now collaborate with all of you. We've truly enjoyed getting to know your community and the history of your community. And we know that you know that this is one of the special places in North Carolina. So, as you know, any historical understanding of the village begins with James Walker Tufts and the Office of Frederick Law Olmsted. As you've outlined in your special character essay within the Village District Guidelines, Pinehurst grew out of Mr. Tufts' vision for a New England village in the Pines, and it was Olmsted's office that executed a truly signature expression of that vision, in large part with the curvilinear concentric street grid and the careful balance of the built and natural environment that lended itself to the historic village character that remains today. So knowing this, we wanted to begin our process by understanding how this site fits within Olmsted's historic plan. As you all know, when Mr. Tufts came to what would become the village of Pinehurst, the area had already been decimated by the timber industry, except for one small stand of pines. Olmsted's office recognized that and identified it as the pine grove that shows up in the lower left corner of his original village plan. And our team was delighted to learn that our site actually sits within what was once the former pine grove. These are some images from historic postcards that show what this area looked like back in the early days of the village during the time of Olmsted. And really understanding and appreciating this environment became part of the genesis of our overall approach to this site. We've invested a lot of effort in understanding native pine savannas. And while the trees that exist currently on the site do not date to the original pine grove, one of the commitments of the project is to understand the historic landscape and to begin efforts to restore some of the historic pine grove in this area. This image, this arrow as it exists today, shows how the village has changed over time. Our site obviously exists adjacent to both the lodge and the resort itself, as well as the village. So with that, we understand that the project that we propose needs to belong both to the resort and to the village proper. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brandy to speak to the architectural context.
Thank you, Fred. All right, so when we began looking at just the beautiful and rich heritage of architectural tradition in the village, we were immediately drawn to the Carolina Hotel. And as we studied the historical photographs, we actually appreciated it more and more. We feel like the attention to detail, and especially all the effort that was made to break the building down to human scale, is a lesson for us to learn from. So the striking image of many buildings in the village, not only the Carolina Hotel, is the deep, welcoming southern porch. In this particular facade composition, it serves to anchor the building to the land. It creates that human scale element with the columns that punctuate it vertically. And it also really sets the four-story building on a base. It gives it a good, solid base to build from. The five-part plan further breaks down the strongly horizontal nature of the building so that you have vertical elements that rise up from behind that lower level porch. The way the windows are grouped on the facades, especially in the central bay of the five-part plan, really heighten the sense of the verticality of that element. And cupolas, or a cupola and dormers on the roof help to further bring that sense of human scale and really help break down the mass of what is a very large building. Another precedent that we were especially drawn to is the early development of the clubhouse. So it was very apparent that the stem of the clubhouse was about viewing the sport of golf, the game of golf. And it grew and changed and expanded very rapidly in the early years. And by 1903, a few short years after the original clubhouse was constructed, you can see that it had already expanded to be quite a large kind of viewing gallery on the upper and the lower level. And it all sort of flanks this simple roof form. And we were just struck by the energy and the excitement of this image, and we wish that we could go back and experience it for ourselves. Other buildings that we pulled from across the village kind of context are ones that you can see here. And as you mentioned, there are multiple images on multiple slides. In the upper left-hand corner is the old train depot that actually sat on the site of the future golf house, Pinehurst, Carolina Hotel, the Holly, the department store building, again, that 1903 version of the clubhouse and the spa. One thing that comes across really strongly in all the roof forms is a sense of hipped roofs, and a lot of the roofs have sort of flared eaves that help kind of ground it and also just add to that depth and layering of the human scale to even the roof form. And another sort of striking thing that we observed is just many of the roofs historically were actually warm toned. So we found that very inviting and welcoming as well. Looking across all of the buildings, again, porches and columns. Porches and columns are the thing that seem to be the common and unifying theme across what is otherwise a fairly eclectic sense of architectural style throughout the village. In particular, we focused on both commercial and residential buildings that had some square columns, and again, upper and lower level porches. Looking at materiality and details, in the upper left-hand corner, we were drawn to sort of the railing detail at the department store. The east wing of the Carolina, just with the different ways that the siding and the siding orientation was used to, again, help break down the scale and the massing of that facade. We looked at roof materiality. So again, metal was used very frequently, as was also slate and shingled roofs. And brick is predominantly used as a base element, both for foundations, for stairs, and also for brick garden walls. And we particularly were drawn to the prominence of this sort of pierced brick garden wall language that we see in multiple places throughout the village. Looking at the site plan, just to understand from a massing and a scale standpoint, we broke the building down into two separate and distinct buildings. The intent was to produce two buildings that were in scale, that was sort of in keeping with the village context. We located the visitor center and museum element sort of to the north in a gesture towards the village, and the test center and admin building to the south in closest relationship to the golf course. There, in the Olmsted plan, we were struck again by the organic nature of the roads and the pathways, and there was sort of a sense of meandering and discovery, and we wanted to replicate that on the site. So we were intent in the location and the configuration of the buildings to create that sort of informal nature and informal character that you see in the placement of buildings with respect to the road throughout the village. From a circulation standpoint, vehicular traffic will be directed down Carolina Vista. There's a drop-off. Let's see, is there a pointer on my slide? No, okay. There's a drop-off just off of the ellipse where shuttles can drop visitors off, as well as cars can pull in and drop people off. And the actual parking entrance and visitor parking area is to the south, off of the bottom sort of arc of that ellipse. In order to sort of maximize the trees that we were able to save, we oriented and configured the parking in a linear fashion. And again, that's just to reduce the asphalt as much as possible and to be able to weave that parking area through the trees as much as possible to preserve them. We also took special effort to locate the buildings on the area that's the existing tennis court to, again, just try to preserve as many of those existing trees as possible. There is a pollinator garden that kind of strings itself between the two buildings, and it is a very complementary element of the visitor experience that helps communicate the USGA's mission to visitors on the site. You can see that again between the Museum and Welcome Center to the north and the Test Center and Admin Building to the bottom. And then there's an event lawn sort of to the southwest of the site plan, with service also in that southwest corner, which is sort of as far away from the public view as we could get it. Site plantings and site elements, landscape elements on the site, again, there was this notion and desire to recreate the pine grove as much as possible. So we're working with as many existing trees, and we're filling in with new trees to try to recreate that. And then that pine savanna, looking to create sort of an understory planting that is hearkening back to that ecological history of the longleaf pine forest. Oops. Go back. All right, so this is just a map of the trees that you can see we're saving and the ones that are going. And it's a little hard to read on the large screen. The green trees are the ones that are to be preserved, and the ones marked red are the ones that are unable to be preserved. So as you can see, again, locating the bulk of the parking in the drive to the west in order to locate that on top of the existing parking area, and locating the building as much as possible on the tennis courts. Unfortunately, to be able to make a connection, a vehicular connection over to Carolina Vista, it required us bringing that kind of parking lot and drive over through a series of trees to connect to Carolina Vista. But the Cherokee Drive, DOT is requiring that we make that a right in and right out only configuration. So primary access will be off of Carolina Vista. This is just a zoomed in approach so that you can understand the footprints and the square footage of each of the buildings. There's a sort of site collector element that helps circulation on the site with a flagpole that emerges from it. You can see the connector walkway element connecting the two buildings, the porches that help ground the buildings to the site, and that pollinator garden that sneaks through between the two buildings. This slide is really about understanding the scale of the proposed structures within the context of the village. The Welcome Center and Museum element is a one-to-one relationship with the department store building. The length is almost identical, the height is almost identical, and even large amounts of the materiality are consistent between the two proposed, or between the department store and the proposed elevation. The Test Center and Admin Building is a little larger. It is a bit bigger, so the Holly Inn is about 110 feet long. Our building is proposed at 150 feet long, so it's a bit longer than the Holly. It is a bit shorter than the Holly because the Holly is 3 stories or 2.5 stories. But you can see with the sort of dotted lines connecting it up to the Carolina, it's like the middle section of the Carolina only, and only 2 stories of it. So it's significantly smaller than the Carolina structure, the Carolina Hotel. This is an aerial view of the two buildings. So the Welcome Center and Museum is the one on the far right, and the Test Center and Admin is on the left. From this vantage point, you can again see that sort of site circulator with the flagpole kind of in the foreground, and the drop-off in the foreground, and that pollinator garden element kind of sneaking in there again between the two buildings. This is a rendering as if you were walking from the traffic circle down along the meandering path, and you arrive sort of at the north east corner of that museum and welcome center. You see the deep porches, that double high, or the double level sort of porch configuration that's similar and reminiscent to the 1903 clubhouse building. And you can see the test center and admin building in the distance. The railings on the second floor of the museum and welcome center, again, are hearkening back to the department store. The roofs are shown as hipped roof forms with dormers on the test center and admin building. This is a view standing at the drop-off, looking at the flagpole in that central kind of circulator zone, the connector. And this is more to the south, as if you're walking back from the resort up Carolina Vista. The building in the foreground is the test center and admin, and you can see the welcome center and museum to the far right. Along the southwest is, again, that proposed service courtyard area with that brick screen wall and gate. And then moving more to the west and around the backside of the facility, this is a view from the pollinator garden, looking between the two buildings back up towards the flagpole and the connector element. Providing just a little more detail in the actual service court, you can see the intent is to provide a loading dock, an area for mechanical equipment, and also for an electrical generator, a couple of transformers, and some dumpsters for trash and recycling. And the intent is that the screen wall is coordinated very closely with all of the mechanical equipment so that it's screened 100%. And then layered in front of the screen wall will be additional plantings to further screen. This is a sampling. It's just a reminder that we're at such an early stage in the design, but the intent is for a standing seam metal roof that's in keeping with much of the precedents that we shared throughout the village. We do like a warm toned roof, so whether it's copper metallic as is shown here or a painted warm tone, something that's reminiscent of maybe pine straw, we think that could be very appropriate and attractive. Also brick base, there are lots of wonderful options that are compatible with the village brick. The siding profiles, again, we're looking at shake, board and batten, and lap siding, and we've pulled colors for today's purposes that are in the approved colors of the village. And then finally, the windows. We have several precedents that we're looking at closely for windows, but in particular, they're going to be wood. They'll be very consistent. They'll be true divided light windows in keeping with the precedents in the village. All right. And with that, we will open it up to, turn it back over to you.
Good. Questions for these witnesses from members of the commission?
Just a comment. I thought I heard one of the presenters say that it was their intention to present a conceptual submittal. Sadly, we have no conceptual process here, so we're going to have to rule thumbs up or thumbs down based on what we see, and subsequent submittals will have to be presented for any changes from conceptual to final. Right?
That is correct, and I think your counsel is aware of how this process works. Normally, for smaller projects, we get, and particularly for residential projects where we have more detailed requirements, we receive a very detailed presentation, and we approve the details or we tweak them. From that which we have approved need to come back to us. As David says, at most we can give you what is in effect a conceptual approval, although it probably doesn't say that because we don't have that in our regulations. But It does mean that the burden will be on you to come back to us at appropriate time, at an appropriate time or times, to get approval for the details that you decide to settle on, and run, obviously, the risk. Build before you get our approval, we may turn you down and you have to dig something up. And on the other hand, if you don't, if you come to us with every little change, you're going to be spending a lot of time visiting with us. And we'll be more than happy to see you. But our order, assuming that we grant an approval, will only be able to approve that.
We understand, and thank you for your willingness to review at this stage in the process. We appreciate that, and we fully intend to come back before permitting to be sure that we're on a track that this commission can support.
I don't know that we've seen anything here that would not be within guidelines, but some of this or, and we can't approve or. We have to know what we're approving. In following up on that, there are existing tennis courts there. Has there been any motion to approve demolition, and is it required for those?
I don't know that we have an, I don't know if we have a requirement to approve tennis court. A structure, yes, but I don't know about a tennis
I'm
court.
not sure.
I don't know either.
Yeah, on your definition of, is a tennis court a structure? I don't know of anything that it would even come close to defining that from our perspective, but.
You have excellent counsel who will undoubtedly be able to advise you on that.
If I may,
About to do so.
as we said earlier, and as Mr. Cameron said, in order to secure the requested rezoning of the site, we have to have your certificate of appropriateness in hand. Once that's obtained, we then start what you all are accustomed to normally seeing, which is the detail aspect of all of this, which would not only include the specifications and particulars that you're talking about on the plan, but also whatever requirements we have to do in order to make the site available to be built on.
Thank you. Do you have any?
I got a further issue with that. I would go back to the staff and ask, is that, I mean, normally, when we issue a certificate, staff then can go ahead and issue a building permit. And in this case, if I'm understanding what's going on, and I just want to make sure it's clear and that I understand the staff's position on this as well, we're going to issue a COA this time around based on what we have, the limited information we have here. Then it's going to go to planning and zoning, and then at some point in the future, we will come back here, and do we issue a second COA at that point in time, or how, I guess we're kind of in strange territory for us, if you will. What is the planned evolution here, just so I understand it and there's no confusion between any of the participants in this matter, including yourselves?
So I think the commission's probably getting a little hung up on thinking about other processes and procedures that would require ultimate permitting and coming out of the ground for a proposal such as this.
Then I'll go just back to our position and what we do. It sounds almost like then we're going to issue two COAs, one at this point in time and one at some future point in time when they come back with more details.
You might not. You might not.
Or-
It's not certain.
or
And what
allocate-
you've been presented today is, you know, the term conceptual is used. You know, final detailed construction drawings are not prepared or not available or ready at this point in the juncture. And that's quite common. There, you have specific building materials, you have specific renderings, specific elevations, specific colors that are presented before you. If, at whatever time and point down the line, months, 12, 13 months down the line, there is a change in the design that is necessitated by some site feature or some change in selection that the owner or client would like to have, that would trigger a re-review of a major work, then what you guys would review is only which would require that rehearing. So any of those substantial changes, not to re-review anything that you've already made a decision on that's not proposed to change.
But, Alex, if I could, then what we're being asked to do is to grant, in essence, a conditional COA, meaning that as long as the final comes back in line with what we have seen here.
You're just issuing a COA on the request before you. It's not conditional on, I mean, in that case, then every COA this commission would grant is conditional. It's conditional based on what you approved and what's been presented before you.
Tom, a couple of weeks back, or a month ago, we faced exactly this condition. Essentially, we are reviewing, as we would any submittal, as we see it for a COA.
Okay.
Any change to that, as any change, would require review of the change. And I guess my comment earlier was to explain to the applicant that our approval is not a conceptual approval. It's a full-on approval based on the drawings we have. That's it.
But if I understand the application, some of the materials are not final. It could be A or B or C, all of which may be fine. But we typically don't let, in the residential case, you have to tell us, is it going to be A or B or C? And that's what we approve.
Or, you know, in discussions and deliberation by the testimony given by the applicants, you can ask for A, you could get A, you could get A and B, you can get A or B, you can get A, B, and C, or you can get A or C, just examples. And that should be based on what applicable guideline you have.
So then what you're telling me is we ought to go through this with the same detail that we do typically for any other COA?
It's a request for a certificate of appropriateness as submitted, so it's no different.
Then we need to go through it with the same detail that we would any other COA that's presented in front of this council, or in front of the commission. Okay, thank you. That answered my question. I was just unclear about that.
I have a different question having to do, I'm sure you guys anticipated this, the screen wall. There is, you said very clearly, 100% screening. I see, not to pick a nit,
That's okay.
but there is one drawing, which I had not lost, which actually shows one of the mechanical units poking above the screen wall. That's not going to happen, right?
The intent, which drawing are you looking at?
It's an elevation drawing, which I.
Okay, we don't have them in here, but yes, the intent is that it does not poke above that screen wall.
Great, right answer.
Is that the drawing you're referring to?
No, it's an elevation drawing.
Which,
She answered the way I hoped she would.
well, I'm confused, because I'm not sure which drawing we're referring to.
Let me go find it. Don't wait for me.
Out of curiosity, is there going to be a significant food preparation area in there that is also serviced by the service area?
Right now, there is no significant food prep area.
Don't wait for me, Eric, I'll catch up.
Other questions for these witnesses?
Yes. I guess it's mine similar combination. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, I have some more questions. Other people do. I'm not trying to cut.
Why don't you go ahead, Tom?
Okay. The question I have is on that walkway. And it looks fine between the two buildings. If we could bring that up just so everybody, there we go. Why is that thing there? I'm just not sure how there's a historical connection with a walkway between the two buildings. I mean, I can't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, where do we see that kind of connection in any of the existing historical perspective?
There is not a precise precedent example of the elevated walkway. This would fall into some of what you spoke about earlier, in that it is detailed like a trellis, which is common within historic districts as an element that's often added over time.
Okay, I mean, that's your answer, I understand that. The material list in Exhibit A, list front, windows. It says wood with black sash, and the staff report says wood with white sash. Somebody's foofing us here.
The intent,
It's incongruent, I mean, the two, somebody, white or black, which is it?
for the record, we're going to go with black.
I'm going to go with black, okay. Which is what you had in your materials list.
So if I hear you right, every rendering that shows a white window should show a black window?
Yes.
While I have your attention. Drawing is on, it's the, what's your title here? Elevation G South.
Okay, let me get there. I do have that here at the back of the presentation, if I can get to it.
Right there. It's a little hard to see on the big
So
screen.
what you actually see is a recessed area in the building behind it, or are you talking about like there's a little teeny sliver poking up in that one? The intent is 100% screening. That is a graphic error.
We can clarify that, and we can clarify the precise height once the mechanical equipment is finalized for the project.
It would be screened by the portion of the wall that is solid or the portion that is not solid.
Both. So we're counting the screening as also inclusive of that pierced wall, because we don't want the walls to get so tall that they're overbearing.
On the windows, and I can use this one that we have up right here. Are the windows in these drawings what you're going to end up with, like 2/2, 3 whatever? Is my question. For example, those appear on the lower portion of that building appear to be fairly complex windows with small panes. Is that the design you're going with?
The intent is that those are reminiscent of the windows at the Holly.
That's a good example. If you were to change your mind on those windows, I don't want to say you would have to come back to us. I would say you would be well advised to come back to us before you paid for the revised windows.
And again, it's our intent to come back before you, because so much of this has the potential as we design it to push and pull and change. So we're comfortable with that. We understand that. We want your full review of the actual things that we plan to install.
Thank you.
Okay, are all of the columns square?
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to tell in some of the renderings. They could,
They're
building almost appear to be round, and then,
They're all proposed as square, and that's, it's a gesture towards relating the buildings to the architecture of the village.
it was a clarification question on my point more than
Sure.
the other. And one of them appears to have multiple columns side by side versus the other one, which appears to have singular columns.
That's right. That's right.
Spaced.
That's right.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what the design was.
Sure.
Does this complete the applicant's presentation?
Yes.
Don't want to cut off questions, but if we've had some good questions and good answers, and if we're ready to move on, we'll move on. All right. Are there members of the public who want to be heard on this application? If you do, please so indicate. Otherwise, our deliberations. All right, thank you. We are now ready to deliberate.
I have one issue back to the screen wall around the mechanical equipment. There's some discussion in the staff analysis about the screen wall being constrained by fence heights in the rest of the guidelines or the standards. I would suggest that a screen wall has to screen what's behind it, or it's a waste of time. Mechanical equipment for a building of this size is unlikely to fit under 6 feet.
And I would like to add to that, just for this commission, before there's potentially any motion, especially as it relates to the fence and wall guideline. Of course, the guidelines do limit rear yard fencing to a height maximum of 6 feet. And the Pinehurst Development Ordinance requirement for these screen walls is that it be to the height, to screening the object that is screening. So I would recommend, if the commission were to grant the COA based on the screen wall needing to be taller than 6 feet in height, you consider that as part of the motion, and whether it is or is not consistent with that guideline, but why, in fact, it would be more congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District.
That guideline even applicable to this issue, because this is commercial new construction and is a separate section of our guidelines in the first place. So-
And that section is for site features, and I wouldn't necessarily consider that screen wall part of the actual building itself. So I think it's safeguarded by making the motion as I represented earlier.
I'm sorry, Alan, you would consider it part of, or you would not consider
Would
it?
not consider it part of the actual building structure.
Or conversely, if it is part of the building, that doesn't, then the site features doesn't apply. Either way, the point is the wall should be as high as the equipment, not constrained by 6 feet, in my opinion.
And again, that is a zoning requirement of our development ordinance that it be that tall.
For discussion, my only issue is the fact that typically we have required a specific list of materials, and here there are some choices. None of the choices appear to be objectionable. None of them, if selected, in my mind anyway, would cause the structure to be not congruous. So I don't have a problem with that, even though I think it is not typically what we do. I don't know if others feel the same way.
We had this issue with respect to the inn not very long ago.
Commission members, some of you guys aren't getting picked up on the microphone, so we can't.
My own view is that we can approve only what has been presented to us, and we can approve that. But it means that when the plans evolve and something is decided that is not in the plans that we approved, we haven't approved it. And if it needs our approval, it's going to have to come back. And I think if we and the applicants recognize that, we can move forward effectively. I don't know that we have to do anything unusual in terms of our motion of approval, because all we can approve is what's been submitted to us, if we're going to approve it. If we want to say that what's been submitted to us can only be approved if it's changed in some way, we have the power to do that. But I haven't heard any suggestions been pursued for that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we may have a clarification to Mr. Taylor's question. Fred?
So to try to offer some clarity on the materials to assist, we talked about multiple simulated wood materials. Those are not a choice. For instance, we have all of those in the project if you look at the elevations. So the one thing I might offer, the one thing that I think we might have confused you on is the metal roof color, because we talked about it being a metallic or potentially painted color. So if you wanted to request clarification for the sake of this submittal, that we say it's either metallic or a painted brown metal roof, we can certainly do that.
I think that would be helpful, yes. And thank you for the explanation on the different sidings.
So we will clarify that the metal roof material would be a painted brown, reddish brown siding.
What color brown?
We, in all honesty, my suggestion, we work with a lot of commissions, condition it that exact material selections come back for final approval. That's pretty standard in most municipalities.
We don't have a mechanism to approve with you coming back, do we? That
Okay, let's do this then. For the sake of this application, let's say it's the copper metallic because it's what's in front of you on the application. Does that work?
That's fine.
And they can come back to us, just as the Village Chapel came back when they changed a door into a window and so forth and so on. The practical problem is, you're probably going to be evolving a number of refinements. I won't even call them changes, but we would treat them as changes. And you don't want to be coming back here every month. We probably wouldn't want to see you every month. But on the other hand, you don't want to spend a lot of money making a change and then find out that we won't approve it.
As much as we enjoy your company, our intent is to consolidate any changes that occur at one time to come back to you.
And if
You did raise one question, though, that I did. Your materials list says wood siding, and if I understood what you just said, it's going to be a composite siding. Is that correct?
It is a cementitious wood siding composite, which I believe is what's in the drawings.
Actually wood.
That is correct.
Because your material list wood, and that's why I was asking the question.
If I could clarify a little bit on the roof concern, just specifically to that request, if the material would not change, metal, then a minor work item of approval could be a different or similar color than what's been proposed before.
As long as it's in the approved palette.
Exactly. So that's something very easily could be handled administratively.
Question, Alex, there is a section not in the commercial section, dealing with metal roof colors. Is that what would guide the staff in that situation in determining whether or not the color change, revision, refinement is acceptable?
It wouldn't be the controlling or the main application for staff to consider the change in the color, but it would be the color palette in the applicable roof guideline, which does and has historically been like an earth tone hue, and obviously be within the Village of Pinehurst color palette we have, which we do have even metal samples for metal roofing. So if it would be in one of those in those palettes, to something staff could approve.
And it is required in the commercial new construction.
Stand corrected.
Are we ready for a motion? Anybody have,
I would be prepared to make one if there's no further discussion.
is there any further discussion? If not,
Sorry. The gate. I have no idea how you can respond to this, but I'm going to bring it up so it's in the record, and that has to do with
Better to
gates-
get it on the table now.
gates that never close, in effect. All of us have had experiences with trash enclosures intended to screen dumpsters with gates on them that never close. And again, I don't know how you might answer that, but to me, because your access, the entry access to the service aims right at Route 5, just missing a building which might have screened it, it's important, to me anyway, that the gates are generally closed.
It's a great question. Within the limits that you have as a quasi-judiciary hearing, much as within the limits we have as architects, all I can commit is that we will design a gate that will be pleasurable to operate.
Go for it.
I would also tell you that for an organization that is as precise about rules as USGA is, I suspect they will hold the contractor to that standard.
Better answer.
in any event, I don't think that we, as the Historic Preservation Commission can condition an approval on closing the gates.
I think that's a little outside our scope.
Much though we would probably like to do so. All right, are we ready for a motion? John? David?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find that the proposed major work at 1 Carolina Vista or such other addresses may later be assigned with the Pinehurst Historic, I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find that the proposed major work at 1 Carolina Vista congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with Historic District guidelines based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. I would add only one provision to that, and that is that we understand in granting this COA that the screening wall may turn out to be taller than 6 feet if required to fully screen the equipment that's inside that service yard.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, we will poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 And we have a second motion?
Yes. I then move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 1 Carolina Vista.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Unanimous. You have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. It was a beautiful presentation and detailed.
Thank you all for your time and for your detail thus far.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful review. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Which one is the next one?
Five went away, yes.
$600 to the next one? Just to make sure we're. Oh, okay, we want to.
0055 has been deferred.
Yeah.
We just need to officially put that on the record.
Want a motion to continue, to grant should we grant a motion for continuance?
The next date.
All right, so just for the,
Do we have to do that if the applicant is withdrawn?
yes, you do.
Okay.
And just for the sake of the folks in attendance and for the record, I have had correspondence with the applicant that has been forwarded to the commission that has requested that the case COA 2021-00055 for the pool at 335 Linden Road has asked to have the case continued to the next regular meeting of May 27th at 4 p.m. here in Village Assembly Hall, 395 Magnolia Road. So something similar to that language, motion would suffice.
So
All right,
moved what he said.
Second.
Tom has moved to grant the motion for continuance. It's been seconded by John.
Yes.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Motion has been granted. All right, and now,
It was actually good because even though I had prepared the should list, I left all that at home, so. Inexplicable but true.
all right, so our next case is 600 Linden Road. Are the applicants present? Okay, you'd like to come up? And would you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please? All right, will you raise your right hand? You swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated, and Ms. Lyle will give us the report.
Okay, so the request before you this evening is for installation of a 15-foot by 35-foot dark blue fiberglass in-ground pool. The property is a non-contributing property within the district. The owner and the applicant, Thomas and Karen Mead, with PIN number 8552-1035-4455. They also, in their application, included a request for a 4-foot tall rear yard metal fence, which would be aluminum painted black to look like wrought iron, which is actually a work that can be approved as a minor work by staff. But if you want to roll it into your decision this evening, you could also do that. So because this is an installation of an in-ground swimming pool, it is considered a major work and requires your approval. Sorry about that, went a little too far here. Well, okay, we'll do it this way. Okay, so just to give you a location on the map, you can see the adjoining properties that were notified of this particular proposal. In terms of development history, there is a bit of a history. There have been several certificates of certificates of appropriateness. I'm having fun tonight. That have been issued. This non-contributing structure was built in 2020. In 2018, the structure that was on the site was demolished, and then the certificate of appropriateness was modified in 2020 as well. So you had all of this contributing to construction of the new primary structure. And then in 2019, there was a minor work for restoration of an accessory structure and addition of a gravel drive. And then in 2020, there was also minor work to make corrections to a previous COA that was issued. So that's kind of the development history. The guidelines regarding swimming pools are relatively brief. The first is that in-ground pools must be congruous with the landscape of the district. And the second is that they must not be easily visible from the street. And in this particular case, the pool is proposed to be located behind the house and will not be visible from the street. It will be surrounded by a 4-foot tall aluminum fence in the rear. And just to give you, this is also in your packet. You can see the pool that is shown. And then just if you intend to include the fence in your motion this evening, this is the location of the fence, which is also to the rear of the building. A 4-foot tall aluminum black simulated wrought iron appearance fence. And so at this time, I would like to submit the staff report, this presentation, the application, the applicant's materials, all photos, site plans, and findings of fact into the record for your deliberation. And as always, the burden of proof lies with the applicant. So he's here, I'm sure, to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Those materials without objection will be received into the record. Questions for the staff?
Is the sighting of the pool, if you could put the last slide up, is that this rectangle toward the back?
So you're looking
Yes.
at this structure. So this would be the pool.
That would appear to be visible from the street if you were proceeding eastbound on Linden, unless the other line that goes out and curls is some other kind of wall, not the wall they're putting, not the fence they're putting around the pool.
Okay, so your concern is this area. Let me see if I can turn on a pointer. All right.
Maybe right, John, but don't you have to
So
go
this
with
area
the
here.
requirements that a pool be totally enclosed? So being enclosed by a fence that's not solid, being fenced by a
Picket fence is not solid, yeah.
wrought iron fence is not a barrier, if you will. You look right through it.
Point is,
And it doesn't prevent it from being visible from the street. Unlike some of the other fences and some of the other projects which would.
Okay, the only thing I would draw attention to is it says easily visible. It's not 100%. So I'm not arguing your point. I'm just saying that it's the requirement just simply is not that it not be 100%, but easily. And I'm not sure how you want to define easily.
We're just clarifying the staff report.
Yeah,
That's all.
I just wanting to be sure that I understood it, the requirement.
And if I may comment on that,
Your point was on the staff report said it was completely screened. Okay,
Requirements, right.
I understand. I'm sorry.
Do we have no further questions from staff? We have someone who can probably address these issues. The applicant, Mr. Kinzer, are you prepared to make a statement?
yes. So we did take that into consideration, that it be as far behind the house as possible. with the original accessory structure in the back that has an existing septic field, which we had to stay away from. So that pool is moved as far as it can be in the center of the rear of the house. It is also approximately about 135 feet from the road, so it is a good distance from there. And although not shown in this drawing, there's some substantial screen landscaping on that side of the house, which make the pool very hard to see driving by.
Great, thanks very much.
The speed limit on that road is 35 miles an hour, is it not?
Sir.
How much pedestrian traffic do you get along the sidewalk at your house?
Not much. The walkway is on the opposite side of the street, along Linden there. I couldn't tell you, couldn't quantify how much, but rarely, not too much pedestrian traffic.
My guess would be pretty infrequent.
Anything else that you'd like to add in support of your application?
No, I think that's it.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here who wants to be heard on this case? Hearing none, that will record, and we may now begin our discussions.
Ready to make a motion?
Ready to hear it?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 600 Linden Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with the historic guidelines based on the testimony given and the material submitted and the findings of fact.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion?
I've got a quick administrative question. Your name again, please?
John Kinzer.
I'm curious, the application, and you are the owner?
No, I'm not. So I can
Okay.
give you some color on that. I believe I filled that as the applicant. I'm not officially on the deed, however.
Well, I'm just, the cover sheet on the village report says that the applicant is Mead. I'm just trying to clarify your position in there is my question.
Well, I'm looking at the application that I submitted with my name as the applicant. It was submitted. And the Meads listed as the
Your
owner.
application is, but the cover sheet for the staff report isn't. Okay, just as long as it's clear as to it was. I apologize for
That's
the
okay.
confusion.
I understand.
Any other discussion? We have a motion made and seconded. Poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Second motion, please.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 600 Linden Road.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Mr. Kinzer, I don't know what relationship you have to the swimming pool, but you've gotten it approved.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance.
out of curiosity, are you putting the pool in?
No, I'm not. So they bought the house. We went in on it with them, but we're not officially on it. The two families together. So more or less being a good friend by being here for the meetings.
I just was confused because of the.
Right.
Perfect,
I
perfect.
understand.
Oh, correct, you did list it as yourself as applicant, thank you.
No problem. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, the next case, I believe, is 4 Village Lane, is that correct? Okay. Is the applicant for 4 Village Lane present? You state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, Michael Vaden,
And how do you spell the last name?
V is in Victor, A-D-E-N.
Thank you. Would you stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth? Thank you. You can be seated, and the staff will present the case.
So this request is for a certificate of appropriateness to replace 2 exterior doors and all windows with Anderson Fibrex replacements on a 2003 non-contributing structure within the district. And as was mentioned, the applicant and owner is listed as Michael Vaden with PIN number 8552-0887-6822. In terms of the standards of review, you are required to review this as a major work because of the replacement of architectural details that change the design or materials from the existing details, and because the replacement of windows and doors that are not compatible with existing windows or doors also requires major work approval. Here is your map, which is also in your packet, depicting the adjoining property owners and the location of the property. In terms of prior approvals, in 2019, a minor work was granted for a gazebo and cover, and in 2021, a minor work was approved for re-roofing. For our guidelines, we're looking at section 3C4. If repair or replacement of an entire window, door, feature, or deteriorated detail is necessary, it should be limited to the minimal amount necessary and replaced in kind, matching the original in composition, dimension, size, shape, color, pattern, and texture. And in particular, wooden windows on street-facing elevations should be replaced in kind. The applicant proposes to replace all exterior wood windows with a composite material of similar finished appearance. The windows are single pane or double hung 1/1. Window arches will be retained on the building front, but the transom side-by-sides will be replaced with large single pane picture windows. Windows on the rear will include gliders with a simulated meeting rail and double hung windows also. The doors reflect an arched feature that is reminiscent of the circular design over some of the windows. The patio, the front patio paned double doors with transom will be replaced with half-glass doors. All doors and windows are to fit into existing openings. And so just to kind of give you a front-facing view and a side-rear view, and you can also see actually the roof and the general location along Village Lane. I tried to group these so that you could see the front windows collectively. We also see the front door on this one, obviously, but these are the large single pane. You can see the arch detail that you also see above on the dormers. We've got single pane, going to single pane 1/1. Same thing. Arch feature, this one does represent, I think, a slight change by going to single pane here. On the rear, this is where you can see the meeting rail and the sliders that are being used. And here we have a 3-3, this one a 3-2. On the upstairs, you can see also, once again, that meeting rail feature on sliders. On the side, we've got 1/1s, which are also very similar to what's there. And in this one particular, I can't remember which room this was, but we go from some panes to a 1/1 design. And in looking at the doors, you can see where we have the transom over the top, the double patio, full glass door, going to an arched half glass with the picture windows on the side. And then also the door, I believe this goes into the garage, if I'm correct. And once again, you're picking up that arch detail, so you're going from your square pane to your arch detail at the top on this door. So at this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: the staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, findings of fact, with the burden once again remaining with the applicant to prove his case.
Thank you. Without objection, the materials referenced will be admitted into the record. Any questions for the staff? If not, the applicant, you can go ahead and add anything that you would like to support your application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. There was two reasons that we did this. One is all the windows are damaged that are currently in the house. They were double pane windows with some kind of gas in between them. The house was actually built in 2000 and not 2003. And they were wooden frame, and there's the problem of those wooden frames eventually adjust and lose the gas. Now, moisture has gotten into all those panes, so it looks like dried milk on the inside of your windows, all of them. And so one of the reasons we went with Anderson is they had that FiberX material that looks like wood, paints like wood, but it doesn't adjust. And so now we can get that double pane, and we went with a thicker glass, and so we're going to get probably 30% energy efficiency back to the home. And aesthetically, by putting those little lines, it looks like a double hung window, yet it's much more effective and much more energy efficient. So, you know, we're almost forced to do something and at this point. And, you know, instead of going to Lowe's and going the cheap route, Anderson, as you know, is not the cheap route. And we went out of our way to make sure it aesthetically looked like basically what's there now.
Thank you. Questions?
Not being an expert on windows, is that simulated meeting rail, is that an integral part of the window? It's not a snap-on piece?
Yes, sir. It's actually, Anderson custom makes these when you order them, and so it is an actual part of the frame, but it's supposed to make a slider window look like a double hung
Right,
window. And
understood.
since we were replacing the double hung, it really has no utility, but it looks like the original windows, so. It's extra cost, but it looks like things going on now.
Yes, sir, David.
Lots of questions about your windows. Starting with the simulated divided light. It appears that the simulated is an insert in between the two layers of glass. Is
Yes.
that what you're proposing?
That's right. They're inside, it's inside the glass.
You look at it from the outside, in terms of the reflective nature of that outer piece of glass, there's no interruption. It's all a continuous sheet of glass, which we can talk about later. Secondly, if we focus, if you can take us back to your slide that shows the front door and the two windows flanking it right there. It appears in that illustration that the two windows flanking the door are the same height as the door.
Correct.
If I look at your existing house, including the transoms above the front door, they all come to the same height.
That's correct.
And there's a comment that your new windows will fit the opening of the old windows.
They will.
Taking all of that and looking at your window details, your front door is listed to be 71 inches tall. Approximately,
Well, not including the transom above the door. So the door will go all the way to the top of what's in the existing transom now.
but it's only 71 inches to the top of the door. See, you have a listing of windows in your application, and
Current
if I
door.
go to the front entry door, it says 71 inches.
The current doors, if you look at the picture, the transom is exactly the same kind of transom over the windows and over the door.
Yeah.
But I think the measurement of the door was, well, it has to be more than 71, or I'd have to duck to get in, so,
My point.
yeah. It
And
must,
on
it's
top
a
of it-
standard door, the door height now that's in there.
On top of the 71-inch confusion, the specification for the two flanking windows call them to be 54 inches, which means they're nowhere near as tall as the
I
door.
don't know where that came from, but that's not what is reflected there in that diagram. And I gave the staff the actual estimates from Anderson.
I think I have that. Says Exhibit E, your Exhibit E. That's where I'm getting this information.
I don't know if you're looking at the wrong section, this maybe not the front door. I think what you're looking at, if we had a different photo, you had a different photo of a window on the front side of the house? Yes. No, go back. Yeah, just to the right. Can you go back to that one slide, just slowly?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there it is, right there. If you go back one more, where you were. Yeah, if you look at the photograph all the way to the right, that's to the right of the front door. And there's another one on the other side of the front door is exactly like it. That is a window that goes into our laundry room, and it is about 50-something inch, but it's on the front of the house. It is a plate glass window as well. So that must be what you're looking at. There's two of them. There's one, I don't know if you've got the photograph of the entire house. Can you do that from the front? Yeah. So if you look there at the front door, you see on the very south side of the house, which is to the left on the screen, there is that 51-inch or whatever plate glass window. And then on the other side of the white columns, yeah, there you go, there's another plate glass window with an arch above it. So that must be what
Let
you're
me
looking
offer
at.
a simpler solution.
I made the same confusion. I thought that this was the door, the windows immediately on either side of the door. which are
Currently,
Bigger than 54.
yeah, currently the doors on the front side of the house, and I don't know if it was the style, M&M Builders built it in 2000. They look like sliding glass doors. They're a single pane of glass with a divider piece of wood and then another single pane of glass, and it looks like a sliding glass door. So does the front door, but it actually opens like a normal door. And then on the other side of it is another faux sliding glass door. So the effort was to make them not look like sliding glass doors anymore, which we don't want.
Let me cut to the chase. Your submittal doesn't match your submittal, so I don't know what I'm reviewing. So I don't know what your intent is. It sounds to me like your intent is to have the windows flanking the front door and the front door go all the way to the top of the current trellis, transom. Is that your intent?
On the front porch,
Right at the front door.
yes.
At your front door,
Bring
you
our
have,
photograph back, yeah, to the front door, yes.
Well, maybe another way to question it, are you changing any of the framing? There you go.
in that case, what he's submitting
Then
doesn't.
there may be some other discrepancy, but if you're not changing the framing,
We're not, it's the existing hole.
that's the size that you're going to get.
It's the existing hole right now, where it is. The transom you're seeing is not a brick divider between the window
Right.
or the door. It's literally part of the framing, so,
The opening that
The
currently,
opening.
currently contains the front door and the transom. You're going to
Right.
take out all of that and replace it with just doors,
with doors that will go
all the way up.
all, to fill that hole. And then on the right and left, it will be a single pane of glass that will fill that hole.
I would suggest then that the staff invalidate the second half of the application. All of Exhibit E is suspect at this point. Agree. I understand your intent, very crystal clear, but unfortunately, your application shows it two different ways, so I'm trying to figure out what's your intent.
Well,
I think I got it
I'm a
now.
little confused with that because the Anderson estimate is where we got those photographs from.
There's not a single window in your list, in your Exhibit A, which has anything taller than 71 inches. So it sounds like somebody,
So the picture rules is what you're saying.
Yeah, that exactly is what reflects we're going to get as the end state.
okay, I'm clear. Thank you very much, appreciate that.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else here who wants to be heard on this case? If not, we can begin our deliberations.
So let me follow up then on what
I'll do a motion.
rat's nest I've opened. The prohibition in our standards against snap-on simulated divided light doodads, grids, some people call them. There are so many other ways to do that, and our guidelines don't really address the between the pane solution to the simulated divided light.
In my mind is better, in my mind is better, it's not a snap-in piece, it is in essence permanent.
I guess I would suggest that if you're trying to simulate a divided light, the fact that the outer glass is continuous spoils that illusion completely. There are fixed grids that go on the outboard side of the glass, which do a much better job at making it look like a true divided light window. Unfortunately, this particular line of windows from Anderson has no such option. It's either true divided light or this solution.
What our guidelines, though, say they can't be snap-on.
Yeah, and I'm suggesting that's a little, if I take that, the intent of that is that we're looking for a solution that looks like true divided light, but isn't. And my suggestion is that that solution doesn't achieve the intent of the guideline, be it verbatim or not.
David, that may very well be, in fact, it is, something that we ought to discuss in revising our guidelines, which hopefully we will be doing as soon as we can clear our docket. But I can't look at the phrase simulated divided light and come to the firm conclusion that we have forbidden the kind of or window that's been proposed here. It's a simulated divided light. You say it doesn't simulate it very well, but it simulates it.
Okay, I agree.
That's, and I
agree.
don't, and I don't know that there's an alternative. We can't tell Mr. Vaden to go back to Anderson and give him a different kind of window, because we don't know that there is such a thing.
But David, is this, when he says a slider, these slide horizontally, is that correct?
My understanding is that none of these windows slide horizontally, is that right?
No, it is a sliding window. We didn't want it to look like a sliding window, so that's why we put the option.
Rather than a double hung that goes up and
Yes,
down, these
that's
go
correct.
sideways.
Oh, I'm really confused. I'm looking right at the triple windows together there in the middle that are intended, I presume, to look like double hungs. They're not sliding,
No,
nor
they're
are they
not.
double hung.
They're actually double hung.
Well, they're real double hung.
The ones that are here currently on the house, that's the backside of the house.
I guess I'm saying, the new windows that are in that illustration right there, the three together,
Yes, sir.
are they?
Sliders.
They're sliders.
And
Meaning
we
they
asked
slide
them.
up and down?
I'm sorry.
No kidding.
It opens like this. It slides like that to the
Okay,
center.
so those three go in the little brick thing in the photo above that, right?
Yes, sir.
Those would be
One
double
of
hung.
each of those three goes in each of the three openings in the brick thing above. How do they slide?
No,
The center one is fixed, and the other two slide.
David, the sliders is the one up to the, it's Exhibit C in the document, or the one up to the top. It's two vertical panels. It has that simulated meeting bar,
Right.
which is embedded in the glass, and they slide this way. They don't slide up and down.
Are you talking about the top left corner?
Top just to the left of the three that you were discussing.
Return to the three I was discussing.
Label these exhibits better.
Those are double hung windows, the three that you were discussing.
Is that right? They're double hung windows.
The new ones going in
Yes.
are sliding windows.
Okay, so I'm back to where I was. I
The
don't understand.
the
how-
three in the middle are sliding? How do they slide? There's only one panel in each opening.
Now you got me.
Correct. They slide to the center on the inside, and you're opening up those two sides, but the center is fixed. And so we wanted it to look like double hung, so that's why we asked them to put that simulated divider thing in the middle.
No, the three underneath rear side, those three,
Those three, yeah.
how do they slide sideways? Those are double
Oh,
hung.
these right here?
Yes.
Oh, in the center of the slide? Oh, yeah, those are double.
Those are
hung.
double hung.
Those are double hung.
The other ones, I understand, they
That's
slide
correct.
sideways.
That's
yeah.
correct, yeah.
Now we're
Yeah,
getting-
those are double hung. That's in the little cupola section. Yes, sir. Those are individual double hung
Windows, okay.
windows. Yes, sir.
Those being replaced by double hung windows.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Now
right.
They wouldn't slide.
Now it makes sense to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so those are sliders. Bottom left corner,
Bottom left corner.
Slider.
Slider.
sliders, so you're replacing what look like three double hungs with two sliders.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions? Any further discussion? Motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 4 Village Lane is not consistent with the Historic District guidelines, nevertheless is deemed congruous with the Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact. And the
There's a second.
reason is that the proposed windows are not the same as what is being replaced.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. I think it's important that we invalidate all the exhibit. Otherwise, we don't know what we're approving.
Well,
All of Exhibit E, which appears to be less correct than the rest of the exhibit.
Exhibit what?
E.
E is an echo?
Certainly some parts of it are, maybe not all, but at least some part. Those discussing the front entry make no sense relative to the pictures that we see, which I think I understand the pictures.
Mr. Vaden, I don't believe that your application depends on Exhibit E. And if you were to withdraw that from your application, I believe it would simplify our approval. Are you prepared to do that?
Yes, sir, I hereby withdraw it.
All right, the application is amended as stated. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'm sorry. Yes, we have a second. Any discussion? Poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes,
Yes?
Yes.
Second motion?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 4 Village Lane.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? None. I'll poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes,
Yes?
Yes.
Congratulations, you have your
you,
certificate of appropriateness.
Can we take a short break?
Yes, we will take a 10-minute break.
Thank you. Done. We got to get a recorder back in.
Okay. Back in session. The next case involves 245 Magnolia Road. Is the applicant here? Thank you. Would you please raise your right hand? While you're doing that, will you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Jeffrey Clark, C-L-A-R-K.
Clark, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You may be seated, and Ms. Lyles will present.
Microphone.
On that on? All right, now it's cooperating. Okay, so the applicant requests a certificate of appropriateness to convert an existing deck into a screened-in porch and install a 6-foot shadow box rear and side fence on a contributing property within the village's historic district. And as he mentioned, his name is Jeffrey Clark, and Dawn Sneed are also listed as owners. The applicant is Jeff Clark, and the PIN number is 8552-1297-4240. And in terms of the standards of review, new construction or additions, such as a converted deck in this case, require approval as a major work, and requests that are not consistent with the guidelines, which would involve installation of a 6-foot-tall side fence, are also require a major work approval by the Historic Preservation Commission. This is our public notification map, and you can see where the property is located and the adjoiners that were notified of this hearing. There is a bit of development history on this property. We show it as a contributing structure built in 1914. In 2010, there was minor work performed to replace the roof. In 2012, there was major work performed for additions and exterior alterations. And in 2020, there was major work performed with the addition of a detached garage. In terms of the building configuration, since we do have a contributing structure, it incorporates a gable roof, German siding, a 3-bay facade, screened front porch, and a large rear L. Guidelines for additions and accessory buildings, 3I1, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing here from our guidelines to shorten them so they're not in here in their entirety, but they are in your reports. They shall be compatible with the character and scale of the primary structure and be congruous with the district. 3I9, they shall be located as inconspicuously as possible in the rear or side yards. 3I10, they shall not obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features of the primary structure. In this particular case, the building footprint, meaning the area of improvement, is not changing. The addition fills in and converts the L shape of the house to a more rectangular shape. The scale is compatible with the primary structure, and the addition is on the side rear corner of the house and will not be visible, directly visible from the street. Converting the deck will not cover existing exterior materials, doors, or windows to the extent where they cannot be seen. We've incorporated a copy of the site plan, so you can see on the drawing here where this is being filled in, where the existing deck is. And here is a schematic for the proposed metal roof, showing the trim to match the house, the sidings, and the screen system. And I would note that you've got a bit of a shed roof kind of coming into your primary roof line this way. For roofs, section 3A1 states that any changes or additions to the configuration of an existing roof shall be compatible with the architectural style of the existing structure and must be congruous with the district. Section 3A5, metal roofs should be copper or one of the following colors: weathered copper color, dark brown, dark bronze, dark gray, dark green, or dark silver. Section 3A6, seams should not exceed 1 inch in height or 1/4 inch in width on a standing seam roof. So the proposed conversion from deck to rear porch will result in a shed roof addition to the rear of the existing roof line. The existing roof is shingled. The roof material will be charcoal gray metal. The application states that it will match the roofing on the garage. So we do have another structure where this would be a similar roof material. For the guidelines for paint, Section 3N, paint color must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure, must be congruous with the district, and should be in the color palette of the district. The application indicates that the paint colors are to match the existing structure, which is white wood. Now, to shift to the fence, we have language which is relevant to the fence. Section 7A10, solid wooden fences are not permitted in the district. And Section 7A11, when measuring fence dimensions, consider all fence elements, including posts. Front yard fences must not be taller than 3.5 feet in height. Side yard fences must not be taller than 4 feet in height. And rear yard fences must not be taller than 6 feet in height. Shadow box fences must have vertical board width of not less than 4 inches nominal and not more than 10 inches nominal with a maximum overlap of 1 inch, and boards must be at least 3/4 inch nominal thickness. And so just to show you the location, see they're showing a gate to be located here on the Magnolia Road frontage and then wrapping around to the garage. And they also included a picture of a shadow box fence in their application, which would be a 6-foot tall fence, which I'm sure the applicants can speak to the fence design when I'm done. So I thought some additional helpful testimony that I would suggest be given would be what are the standing seam height and width dimensions for the proposed panel lock roof? What will the overlap of the roof look like on the street side, since it is coming up over the roof line? And what is the width and thickness of the shadow box boards and the overlap? And hopefully the applicant can help with, give you a little bit more information on those items. So at this time, staff would like to submit the following into the record: the staff report, presentation, application, applicant's material, photos, site plans, and the findings of fact. And I guess now the burden shifts to the applicant, and I'm done. Thank you.
Without objection, those materials will be received into the record. Have any questions for the staff before we go to Mr. Clark?
Just one in general, and understanding the current shorthanded situation, it may not be possible now, but we have another shadow box fence application here. Well, actually, it's the one that was deferred. Since there is a requirement, couldn't the size be noted on the application when someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to put a shadow box fence up?
Yes.
Oh, I have one comment, really. You had reviewed Section 3.1 having to do with additions and accessory buildings, and you read off several of the requirements in there. There's one, I think, that should be added that is particularly apropos, and that's the one that says, if the material used on the primary structure is non-conforming with the current Pinehurst Historic District standards, the same material is permitted on additions and accessory buildings. I bring that up because clearly the roof of the garage, which he is intending to match, I presume, is not a standing seam roof, and therefore the section having to do with height and width of standing seams roofs does not apply nor need it because of that clause.
Okay, all right. So delete all references to standing seam roofs.
Say again, sir?
I said, so, I'm sorry. It's easier if I don't wear the mask when I'm speaking. So we should delete all references to standing seam roofs.
Right, he's not proposing a standing seam roof.
I am. Yeah,
So-
there is an element on the garage, a shed over the garage door itself that has the gray metal roofing that you approved in our last COA.
So it's not the Exhibit F that shows a panel lock plus, which is not a standing seam roof.
That is, well, it's corrugated, I guess. I guess technically it's corrugated.
Okay, so
There's just, it's a nuance in material names, correct, right? Like standing seam, I think tends to be a little taller than the corrugated, but yeah, it's a corrugated metal roof, I guess, would be more accurate.
ask another way. We'll get all the lingo out of it. Are you matching what's
Yes.
in your exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, I would suggest, this is to your benefit, what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to comply with the standing seam dimensions because of section 4B, whether you call it standing seam or not.
Clark, would you like to go ahead and present anything in support of?
Yeah, there's just in a clarification, there was a mention of what the connection from the street to the roof would look like. It's a continuation of a shed roof that's already there, so the elevation won't change, and so from the street, you won't see it at all. It's behind another portion of the house. The shed roof comes back. We're just gonna continue that roof line, but change from the shingles that's over a bathroom there, and then that will continue with metal over the new porch, or the existing porch, but the new roof. So the roof line doesn't change, right? So there's no visibility there. And as far as the variance on the fence is concerned, we're just looking to continue the 6 foot from the back around to the end of that porch, which gives us a little more privacy from the driveway adjacent to that porch. There's a garage and a driveway at the next door neighbor's house. It's pretty far back from the road. There's already some existing shrubs or bushes there that, block that fence from there anyway, so I guess that's
If I recall, your property actually slopes down fairly significantly from
It
the
does,
street.
yeah, from
so
the road, yeah.
It would even give you a little more privacy from someone going by on the road.
It would, yeah. We have, I noticed you asked about foot traffic with Linden Road. Well, we have a lot of foot traffic, right, so.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Clark? All right, is there anyone else here who wants to be heard on this case? Hearing none, I think it's time for us to deliberate.
I guess the first thing I'd like to mention is I've not heard any reasonable rationale why we should make a deviation from our side yard limitation. Admittedly, a 6-foot fence provides more privacy, but that's not, in my mind, no reason to deviate from the standards.
By itself, it is not, and if the lot were flat, I would agree with you completely. Because of the slope of the lot, if you measured 4 feet high from the street level and continued that back to where this fence is, it would be above, I believe, where the top of the 6-foot fence is. The property slopes that severely. So the visual perception of a 6-foot fence that far back from the road, given that it's downslope, will not appear higher than a 4-foot fence would if it were a level lot.
Good point.
That would be my guess.
And you're quite a bit away from the road in any case, because everything is at the rear of the property.
It's very close to the back of the house. It's 20 feet from the back of the house, and from the road, it's 80 to 100 feet. Like I said, there's some existing Rose of Sharon bushes there that would block most of that fence anyway.
We allow a deviation when we are screening a residential lot from a commercial property. I'm not sure that we've talked about when one property is relatively tight to another property, as often happens with these older houses when there was not a setback when they were built. So I guess the proximity to your neighbor's driveway is maybe not in our guidelines
I mean,
technically.
I could plead the case that we're shielding it from the manor in as well. I mean, we're directly across the street. If that's a normal variance, I could make that as a.
That is factual.
We have, as I understand it, a policy of limiting the height of fences to improve the the village-scape, if you will, the ability of people. Say is that that rationale could be excused or could be said not to apply in this case.
Please speak into your mic. Thank you.
That rationale could be said not to apply strictly anyway in this case because of the topography.
Yes.
That's a plausible argument, I think. Any other discussion?
I can make a motion if you're ready.
All right, I believe we're ready.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 245 Magnolia is not consistent with the Historic District guidelines because of the 6-foot side yard fence, which is not easily visible from the street. Nevertheless, is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. I think the most convincing thing I heard, which makes me want to.
I can't hear you.
Most convincing thing I heard that makes me want to vote in favor is the topography. It would be great if that were in the record as part of the motion.
Help yourself.
Friendly amendment.
I'm lost on that point, so if you want to make an addendum amendment.
I would add the statement that not easily visible from the road, which
I
is
already
what's
said that.
in your motion,
And
due to the falling topography. I'm just thinking down the road.
Amendment, that friendly amendment?
I accept that. Second.
Seconder was John?
I accept the
Accepts
friendly
it.
amendment.
All right, the amended motion is therefore before us. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you. And the second motion, please.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 245 Magnolia.
Second.
Their discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. You have your certificate of appropriateness, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, gentlemen.
It goes down and then back
And then
up
it
to
goes
the.
back up, yeah,
No.
it does.
It's a-
All right, the next case involves 30 Medlin Road. Is the applicant here? You state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yes, William Huffstetler, and that is Huffstetler.
Thank you, and raising your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Miles, will you present the case?
This request is to consider a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of a non-contributing structure, construction of a new single-family residence, and addition of a 6-foot rear and side shadow box fence. And as he was sworn in, Mr. Huffstetler and Nelda Huffstetler are the owner and applicant. The architect is Enrique Artigua, and the address is, of course, 30 Medlin Road, with a PIN number of 856205181846. So with the standards of review, once again, we've got a proposed fence that is new construction not deemed to be minor work, and then a demolition is definitely a major work, as is new construction. And so all of this will require approval by the commission. In terms of our public notification, you can see the property here and the surrounding parties that have been notified. In terms of the background, the existing structure was built in 1935. It is a non-contributing structure on the survey, and there are no prior certificates of appropriateness that have been issued for this property that we found a record for. Okay. So we'll start with the demolition first. In terms of our demolition guidelines, prior to demolition of a primary structure, a record of the primary structure must be made that describes any distinctive architectural features of the structure, important landscape features, and any archaeological significance of the site. This documentation must be provided to village staff before the public hearing. And in this particular instance, they provided photographic documentation of the structure. We did have some interior photographs included. In this particular case, I'm not sure how relevant those would be, so I pretty much focused on just including the exterior pictures in this PowerPoint. I would say that the existing structure has suffered demolition by neglect and has obvious exposure to the elements at this point. The photos did show that there may be some potential value in salvage of doors and hardware, and so the applicant should be encouraged to invite evaluation by salvage business for anything that might be of value. There might be some odds and ends that could be used. But in terms of other materials, we can kind of show you what's there. So here is one picture of the exterior. Here is a second picture, I guess, from the rear of the house. And a picture of the roof. It's not very good. And in terms of our general guidelines, new residential, and this is shifting over to the new structure, new residential primary structures must be congruous in size, scale, proportion, style, materials, and character with the range of existing structures within the historic district. And they're proposing a 2-story Craftsman, which is a common style within the district. They have included a mix of exterior materials, stone chimney, shake-style dormers, and a low-pitched roof. Majority of the material is lap and cedar shake siding. But I did flag the additional testimonies needed regarding materials, such as where the composite would be placed, what's to be wood, that type of thing. So I would recommend that the applicant include some of that in his testimony. For Section 4B2, all construction must be compliant with the PDO and adhere to relevant guidelines herein as appropriate to specific projects. Based on the materials that were provided, it's determined to be compliant with the PDO, but zoning approval will be required prior to construction. So we'll have another look at that later on as well. And just to kind of give you a bit of a site plan, you can see where the house is proposed to sit. And we also show an existing storage building here in the corner. Here are the first and second floor plans. As we mentioned, it's a 2-story. The front elevation and the rear elevation. Right side and left side. And windows and doors guidelines, window and door openings must be congruous with the other primary structures in the district in terms of proportion, shape, position, location, pattern, and size. Based on the submitted elevation, the proposed window styles appear to be congruous with other windows featured within the district. The applicant does not propose glass block or front-facing sliders. Predominant window style is 6/1. Small windows are single pane, 2/2, and 4/1 on the side and upper stories. The garage door includes a series of 2/2. Section 4C2, windows should feature true divided or simulated divided lights, and muntins or windows with interior fixed muntins. Snap-in muntins are not appropriate. It was unclear from the material submitted if the windows will comply with this section, so you'll also need testimony, I think, regarding information on the windows. This structure will also include a new chimney, and new chimneys should be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous. Exterior chimneys should have a masonry finish. A masonry chimney is proposed. Masonry chimneys are congruous with the district. In terms of building materials, predominant materials and finishes for proposed new primary structures must be congruous with the district, with materials and finishes in the district in terms of composition, scale, pattern, detail, texture, finish, and color. Section 4F3, the following materials and treatments are not permitted for new residential construction: asphalt or asbestos siding or shingles, including those stamped or embossed with a brick or stone pattern for walls, sheets of plywood siding, vinyl or aluminum siding, plastic, sheet metal, or similar material used as siding or panel, any treatment of material that imparts a glossy or reflective finish to the material, concrete cinder block or glass block, and box chimneys. In terms of siding, the applicant has identified composite siding on the rear. You'll need additional testimony regarding materials for shakes and other siding. Windows are identified as double-hung white. Testimony will be needed regarding material of the windows. Masonry, the foundation is identified as red masonry and the chimney as red brick. I don't know if the applicant has any samples, but perhaps he can talk a little bit more about that. And for the roof, the porch and dormers are identified as metal. Asphalt architectural shingles are proposed. The color is proposed to be charcoal. The roofing will be black metal roofing. Metal roofing is permitted within the historic district. And once again, they can talk a little bit more about materials. And I've included, this sheet is in your packet. It does not show up well on the slide, but it's their reference to proposed materials and colors. Landscaping and vegetation, additions or alterations to the existing landscaping, including plant material, hardscape, and accessory structures, must be compatible. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan that is compliant with the PDO. The proposed planting should complement the site and would appear congruous with the district. Section 7C14, it's got to be 14. Removal of trees 12 inches in diameter at breast height and larger must not unreasonably compromise the existing tree canopy and the historic appearance of the landscape. New construction should minimize the impact on existing mature trees and their root systems. And tree removal within the village's right-of-way is regulated by village staff, just as a reminder. So based on the application, the applicant is proposing tree removal. It is unclear how many mature trees will be removed based on the application. For fences, our guidelines, 7A10, solid wooden fences are not permitted in the district. And 7A11, when measuring fence dimensions, consider all fence elements, including posts. Front yards must not be taller than 3.5 feet in height. Side yards must not be taller than 4, and rear yards must not be taller than 6 feet in height. Shadow box fences must have vertical board widths and of not less than 4 inches and not more than 10, with a maximum overlap of 1 inch, and boards must be at least 3/4 inch nominal thickness. The application indicates a 6-foot-tall shadow box fence in side and rear yards. No specificity has been provided regarding the shadow box details in the application. So, and just to kind of show you their fencing proposal along the property lines. So at this time, staff would like to submit the following to the record: the report, the presentation, application, applicant's materials, photos, site plans, findings of fact. And with that, I'm done. And
Without objection, the referenced materials are received into the record. Thank you for your report. Are there any questions of Ms. Lyles? Yes, David.
Did I hear you say the roof, metal roof is black?
let me go back and verify what we have
Find it on the
here.
material list, so I'm confused.
Oh, I went too far, sorry.
Roof here says charcoal.
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 Thank you. Would you also bring up Exhibit E, which shows the extent of the fence?
Okay. There it is.
That's to the front corners of the home. This is kind of a 4-foot fence would mean nothing to the neighbors because the offset is 5 feet. And we just don't feel like they would be afforded the privacy they deserve with a 4-foot fence. We just as soon not put one. We're not putting anything in the front. And there's already a shadow box fence at the back on our neighbor's property. It's just mostly to be considerate of our neighbors and the 5-foot offset, which was original in that particular area.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by 5-foot offset?
That's exactly what it is. From my property line to their window is 5 feet.
Wow.
And a 4-foot fence on that property line wouldn't afford them any privacy at all. I mean, or us either. It's just awfully close to, and anyway, we're not interested in having a fence in the front, or we're not really interested in having it there. If we had proper offsets, we could just handle that with shrubbery, but there's just no way.
Before we get into the detail of that, can we deal with the demolition request?
Yes, I was going to suggest that we do that. There's really no issue as to the demolition. There's an absolute right on the part of the applicant to demolish the old building. We could delay the demolition for up to a year if there were any reason to do so. I haven't heard any reason that would suggest that that would make sense. I think all the pre-demolition procedures have been taken care of by staff. So I think we're ready for a motion to approve the demolition, if someone would care to make it.
Do we use the same language for a demolition?
Uh,
Seems slightly,
No, we really don't. We just make a motion to approve the demolition.
I would move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the demolition of the existing structure at 30 Medland Road, with the only condition being that the owners be requested to give best efforts to see if there's anything worth salvaging.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll poll the commissioners. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And as, I don't think we do
I don't think we need a second.
do anything else on that. So you have the approval for your demolition.
Thank you.
Now we can address the new building. And
Just a couple of clarifications on the materials. You've listed siding. Do you, hardy plank, wood siding, do you know what you intend to use there?
I have a brochure there. It's a composite for the whole siding, same type of deposit, composite, even for the shakes.
Right, you intended the rear, right, and left elevations all to be composite lap siding?
That's correct.
Okay, got it.
Anything that's captured in the dormers, though, we plan to put shakes on it. But straight line shakes, and for some reason, we couldn't find a good example of a straight line composite shake. All of them were, I don't know, some kind of funky shit. Yeah, we want straight on the dormers. Yes, sir.
Regarding your windows, I have here your sample package.
Uh-huh.
There's a brochure from Pella, conveniently open to the page on simulated divided lights. Are you doing simulated divided lights or grills between the glass? The former is preferred.
Well, whatever is required and preferred is what we're willing to do. I mean, I'm not.
Good answer.
well, you may want to check on prices before you say you do whatever we want.
Nah, we're going to do whatever we have to do with those windows.
We'll like it better, too.
And what's the garage door going to be made of?
The garage door,
It says white here.
the one we have presently is a composite also. It's a fake wood, I guess you might say. We're trying to stay as simple and within the village history as possible with the white building and
Nice design.
what we're trying to do.
With or without the proper setback, I think the neighbors will be very happy with this. With or without the proper setback, I think your neighbors will be very happy with what you intend to do.
Well,
going to be a little bit of an improvement over what's there now.
Yes, absolutely, but, and also it won't be visible from the street at all. I mean, it's just going to affect the houses on both sides. I know I would prefer it.
There really isn't anything about tree clearance. The lot is somewhat overgrown. I assume you're going to mostly,
You know, most of those trees are pretty mature and they're right on the street. So I don't know that I'll have to, oh yeah, as far as clearing the lot, I've got to clean it up. It's got undergrowth. But as far as the mature trees, I don't think it's going to get but maybe one of those good pines. We want to try to keep the pines if we can.
Other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, are we ready to deliberate on the new construction? Do you have anything further to add, Mr. Hofstadter? No? Okay.
No, sir.
anyone from the
Oh,
public?
anybody else here to be heard on this case? No, thank you for the reminder, Terry. All right, I think we're ready for discussion. We may be ready for a vote.
Getting
Yes,
to
sir.
be a habit, but I guess my comments about 6-foot side yard fences from the last case apply here as well. I've not heard any convincing argument why we should allow a deviation from our standards. Anybody have rationale?
I hear the point that a 4-foot fence wouldn't accomplish anything, and maybe that's the answer. I kind of feel the same way.
I guess the standards don't require that we screen the neighbor's windows.
Right.
Given the nature of the property, it was difficult to assess, you know, where the other fences are or whatever. So I'd have to go along with the gentleman's request.
Oh, okay.
We could, the 6-foot fence could come to the rear corner of the new house, is that correct? Or is anything coming down the side limited
It's
to 4.5?
coming, not all the way to the front, down to the front porch corner.
I mean, in terms of our guidelines, we
Oh,
could permit
I'm
a
sorry.
6-foot fence as far as the rear of the home,
Back of the house, yeah.
but no more than 4.5 feet from there to the front of the home.
It's pretty explicit. It's clear, simple.
If that were the case, what would you do? Would you prefer to do no fence at all if we don't approve 6 feet?
I'd probably landscape a berm through there and heavily, put heavy shrubs and then a 4-foot fence which would be at 6 feet. It'd just be a lot more expensive.
I think I'm inclined to believe.
Can I interject real quick? So the development ordinance wouldn't allow for the use of, to berming and then fencing on top of that, if that's what Mr. Hufstetler was referring to. Just so, I don't think there was a serious request.
No, we were just,
But he
So-
could
so
put
the
in-
commission
he could put
don't
in
consider
6-foot-high plants, he can't put a 6-foot-high fence.
With the current guidelines, but what I was referring to is basically being able to berm up the ground to construct a fence.
Right. But that, in any event, is not before us, so we don't have to rule on it. I express the personal opinion that when we have a rule that we're supposed to apply, we should apply it unless we're given a good reason not to. In this case, although I understand the reason for not applying it, I don't think it overrides our rule. So I would favor an approval of this application less the fence variance. And
Which would only be from the back corner of the building out to as far as he was out to the street, really.
Out to the front of the house was where I think he was going to stop.
Right.
In any event, what is allowed by right? Someone prepared to make a motion along those lines?
I am.
Thank you.
First, I want to compliment you on, other than the fence, being a nifty little house. It looks really nice.
Thank you.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 30 Medlin Road to be incongruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted. I'm reading the wrong one. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 30 Medlin Road is not consistent with the Historic District guidelines, nevertheless is deemed congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact, with the exception of the 6-foot side yard fence beginning as specified in the standards at the back of the house to the front of the house.
Second.
Made and seconded, just for clarification, you're moving to approve everything but the fence?
Yes, sir.
The side yard fence.
Side yard fence, correct. Any discussion? Hearing none.
May I ask a question? When you say, but it can still come to the side back of the house, correct?
Yes.
Far forward as the back of the
Come
house.
6 feet right down to the corner.
The back of the house. Along the back and then L in till it gets to the house. Gotcha.
It's what's allowed by right under the development ordinance.
And along the side, you can go 4.5 feet if you choose to, and if you decide
Gone
that that's
there.
not worth it.
Yeah, you don't have to, but you could. All right, Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 And the second motion, please?
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed work at 30 Medlin Road.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
The next one being 87 Short. And I am, as soon as you announce.
Yes. The next case involves 87 Short Road. As the applicant here,
Okay, as I previously indicated, I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
thank you. Before you sit down, would you raise your right hands, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and spell your last name for the record.
Oh, go ahead. Christine Dandino, Dandeneau.
Judy Davis, Davis.
Thank you. Back.
Thank you, Kathy needed a break.
Will you present the case?
All right, I'll be glad to. So the purpose of this portion of the public hearing is to consider a request within the Pinehurst Historic District for some exterior modifications to the property at 87 Short Road. The modifications include a approximately 300 square foot addition, enclosing a small porch, repair, repoint mortar as needed, replace chimney cap, replace all existing double hung windows to match the windows in the addition, remove the fabric awning at the entrance, replace existing garage door with an automated door opener, repair and repaint the shingles as needed, tree removal, repaint existing gray shed, re-roof entire existing home, driveway replacement or reconfiguration, add an open porch to the south elevation, and a pool with fencing. The property is further identified by Moore County PIN number 856-205-284641. The property owner is Judy Davis, of course, as sworn in, and applicant helping Ms. Davis is Christine Dandino of Dandino Architecture. Here's our public hearing notification map that was included within the notice and the board packet. The subject property here is labeled with 87 Short Road. You can see the adjoining property owners that were notified of the public hearing today. Standards review, again, this request is before the commission today to review a major work COA because new construction or additions and also replacement of architectural details that changes the design or materials from the existing details are considered major work items. The request and background, so this COA within Pinehurst Historic District for all those exterior modifications at 87 Short Road. I won't go through all these because I just read them, but they're also included in your packet. It's also worth noting that a similar request for some of these even listed items was granted by this commission at the January meeting. However, some alterations or modifications are now proposed that are again considered major work. And some of those are the 300 square foot addition, the enclosing of the porch, the rear porch addition, some tree removal with clarifications provided by the applicant, and the swimming pool. Our applicable guidelines here for this proposal: additions and accessory buildings, sections 3.1.1 or I1. Additions and new accessory buildings such as carriage houses, garages, and other buildings must be compatible with the character and scale of the primary structure and must be congruous with the character of the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant, again, is proposing about a 300 square foot addition on the side of the structure, and I believe it's the right side if you're facing it from Short Road. The addition differs from the existing structure by the use of siding. There's proposed to have hardy lap siding, and of course hardy board is a product that simulates the look and detail of wood. The cottage look of this addition would appear similar to other structures found within the historic district. Further guidelines: additions and accessory buildings such as carriage houses, garages, and other buildings must be located as inconspicuously as possible in the side or rear yards. Again, this proposed addition will be located in the side yard of the property. Finally, for additions, an addition must not obscure, damage, or destroy the character-defining features of a historic primary structure. Again, because of the proposed addition being located on the side, it appears it would not obscure, damage, or destroy any character-defining features of this historic primary feature or structure. Shutters must be compatible with the historic character of the structure and must be congruous with the existing shutters in the Pinehurst Historic District. So the applicant is proposing to replace existing shutters with new wooden shutters that feature shutter dogs, and the proposed structures would be shutters would be compatible with other shutters in the historic district. Regarding chimneys, new chimneys or chimney repairs and alterations should be compatible with the architecture of the structure and must be congruous with chimneys in the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant is proposing to replace the chimney cap with a matching bronze barrel chimney cap. Porches, entrances, and balconies. New porches, entrances, balconies, or alterations to porches, entrances, and balconies on street-facing elevations must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with other similar elements in the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant is proposing to enclose the existing front street-facing porch. The enclosure of this existing porch would result in the addition of some hardy plank siding and the addition of 5 cottage-style windows. The elevations that were submitted with the material also indicate the incorporation of existing details such as a brick base to match the existing brick foundation of the primary structure. Based on the proposed elevation submitted, the porch would appear to be similar to other porches in the historic district. Paint and stain colors for exterior walls, architectural elements, or details, decks, and porches must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and should be within the Village of Pinehurst color palette. The proposed paint colors are consistent with the Historic District guidelines and appear similar to other structures within the Historic District as well. Painting copper and terracotta surface is not appropriate, and there does not appear to be any proposed painting of these surfaces. In masonry, the addition of a masonry feature or the alteration of a distinctive masonry element or material must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant is proposing the addition of a brick base to the street-facing porch, and this brick base would be similar, as stated earlier, to the existing brick facade of the primary structure and other structures within the historic district. Masonry elements and terracotta surfaces that contribute to the overall character of structure should not be painted or coated. Painting a brick surface is not appropriate unless it was previously painted. Based on the submitted material, the brick base is not proposed to be painted. Standards for swimming pools, new in-ground swimming pools, which we've covered in previous hearings tonight, must be congruous with the landscape of the Pinehurst Historic District. And the proposed in-ground swimming pool appears to be similar to all other in-ground pools located within the historic district. In-ground swimming pools must not be easily visible from the street. The proposed pool is situated and located in the rear yard and would have a, this 6-foot fence I don't think is correct, a 4-foot tall fence providing additional screening. Fences and walls, of course, we've covered how we must measure fencing and where they're located within what applicable yard. So the proposed fence, being the black aluminum 4-foot tall fence, would be located in the rear yard and meet those guidelines. Landscaping, the removal of trees 12 inches at diameter breast height and larger must not unreasonably compromise the historic tree canopy. Of course, new construction further should minimize the impact of existing mature trees and their root systems. And the applicant has provided an updated material which has been forwarded to this board. And they were proposing to move the 6 trees as indicated on the tree survey with the updated material provided and can address further if needed by the commission. I'm going to just skim through some of the material that had been provided by the applicant prior to the hearing and included in your packet. Here you'll see the rendering as well as the site plan, elevations, some more renderings, and a very nice material and paint color sample that were provided to the board. And at this point, I would like to officially enter the staff report, this presentation, the applicant's material, draft findings of fact into the record, and as also stated, the updated tree survey with the 6 trees indicated to be removed, which was provided to the board. We can label that as an exhibit. We have to look through the record and see where we left off with the last one. Furthermore, within the material that was provided to you guys, it labeled Exhibit B is not applicable, as pointed out earlier by the applicant, to me today, and we can go through that more as it has been replaced by Exhibit
F, I think, but I'm not sure.
We can pull those up. So anyway, Exhibit B has been asked to be taken off the record.
Exhibit B is withdrawn.
B like Bravo.
B is in boy, B is in Brown, B is in Beta. Is withdrawn.
Can you quickly summarize what about it is why?
The way the addition met the house. If you looked at that and the other additions, there's a gable has been added on the side of the house where that was a continuation of the same roof line in Exhibit B. And I think it presents more strongly without that.
Understood, agree.
Just one question. The reference in Exhibit A says to a future pool, and there's no description of the pool, but it is picture. Are we approving a pool or are we not?
I think, and the applicant will be able to address it, but the request before you is to consider an in-ground pool, but the desire may not be to move forward until what sometime point the applicant would like to.
All right, the reference materials submitted will be admitted into the record. Thank you, Alex. Do we have questions for Alex before turning to the applicants? Thank you. Applicants, what would you like to add to what's been said?
So I would like to say that I do intend to occupy this home, and that the change from the proposal I came with in January is really driven by several things. One being the price point of construction at this point in time sort of made me rethink exactly what I needed and wanted in this house. And then also the fact that the lot behind me has been sold, and I don't know exactly what's going to come there, so I felt like I wanted to reconfigure the addition that I was doing. And the third thing was that I moved some of my furniture in to that house just to see what it would look like and how it would play out, and that made me think very strongly about enclosing that front porch to open up the livable space in that living room. So those were the three things that prompted this change, and I apologize for being on your docket a second time, as busy as y'all have been, but appreciate your consideration. There are many things that are similar. I'm going to have Christine talk about the treatment that we came up with for that enclosure of the front porch.
Well, we just sort of gave it a more historical kind of framework with just solid trim to make it more interesting. The house, it's a little confusing currently. It looks like that's the front of the house when it actually isn't. And so this kind of says, no, that's not the front of the house. And, you know, the entrance is where the portico is. And, yeah, just she would like to use that front area, and it kind of will match the side. But it's kind of nice, this new addition kind of respects the existing house more, honestly, with just, you can clearly see what's been added and what, you know, what was the original house, so.
And we also switched from shake shingle siding in the addition to a lap siding and using the artisan hardy plank, so it'll have mitered corners on the edge, and that we also thought that would be hark back to more of a, you know, cottage feel as well.
The house does sit sort of sideways on the lot.
It sits perpendicular, exactly. And so by enclosing that front porch, it makes it less confusing. Christine kept trying to make me change the entrance, but but now we found a good way to satisfy it. And I'm still also, you know, trying to get as much green space as possible and eliminate one of the one of the driveways and have it be just a little bit more inviting.
The questions? Are we ready for discussion? There are no further questions?
It's not surprisingly a very complete package. A neat project, I think.
Are we ready for a vote, for a motion? Don't want to rush anybody. Dinner's waiting at home. Got to get to it.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 87 Short Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with historic district guidelines based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the commissioners. Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 4-0.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 87 Short Road.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll poll the commissioners. Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
And I will build this one.
We look forward to it.
Thank you, I do too.
Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you. Back shortly.
Our next case involves 125 Kelly Road. Is the applicant here? Thank you, welcome. You're a patient person. Will you state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
Yes, Dan Degree, D-E-G-R-E.
All right, and would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Alex, would you proceed?
Gladly, and thank you. All right, this request is for a major certificate of appropriateness, or COA, within the Pinehurst Historic District for construction of a new single-family home at 125 Kelly Road. Property can be further identified by Moore County PIN number 856-205-089-506. The property owner of record is Charles Muccio, and the applicant is Dan Degree of Step One Design. There we go. Here's our public hearing notification map included with your packet. Subject property located here in the central area. The adjoining property owners that were notified of the public hearing. Standards of review, this is before you guys because major work, of course, major work review must be reviewed by this commission, and new construction is considered major work. Just a brief background on the subject property. Many of you may know this property came up a couple of times last year in 2020. Ultimately, a COA was granted for the demolition of the existing single-family structure at 125 Kelly. And here's a photo that was included in the Commission's packet back in February of last year. Guidelines for new construction. New residential primary structures must be congruous in size, scale, proportion, style, materials, and architectural character with the range of existing structures within the Pinehurst Historic District. This proposed new residential structure, as indicated on the applicant's material, will feature a farmhouse style of architecture. The main characteristics of the home, again as submitted, that define it are a mix of materials including a stone chimney, shake-style dormers, low-pitch roof. The majority of the material is lap and cedar shake siding, which are consistent with the guidelines and prevalent within the local historic district. All construction must be compliant with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and adhere to the relevant guidelines herein as appropriate to specific projects. With the material that's been submitted thus far, it would appear that all requirements of the PDO have been demonstrated, but also additional information will be required by zoning approval prior to permitting.
Excuse me. That's incorrect. I don't have a chimney. There is no stone on the chimney, and this is a board and batten house.
We'll take that out.
Sorry.
I was searching for the chimney. I was coming up blank.
And again, we apologize. There's been 3 staff members that have been looking at this staff material. We'll clarify that. Thank you, Dan. As exhibited here with Exhibit D that was submitted by the applicant, you can see the board and batten siding. There are some, it looks like some stone features there with the columns there on the proposed front elevation, and the base there, those windows to the front right. This would be your left and right side elevations. Window and door guidelines, I hope these are right. Window and door openings must be congruous with other primary structures in the Pinehurst Historic District in terms of proportion, shape, position, location, pattern, and size. Based on the submitted elevations, the proposed window styles appear to be congruous with other windows featured within the district. Windows should feature true divided or simulated divided lights and muttons, or windows with interior fixed muttons. Snap-in muttons are not appropriate. At this point, it's unclear. The applicant can state clear if these windows, proposed windows, would meet these guidelines and feature snap-in muttons. Glass block windows, of course, are not allowed on street-facing elevations. They have not been proposed with this material provided. Applying paint, tint, or darkening film or to window or door panes is not appropriate on street-facing elevations. None of that has been proposed with the application material. Sliding doors are not allowed on street-facing elevations in the Pinehurst Historic District, and no street-facing sliding glass doors have been proposed. Building materials, again, the predominant materials and finishes for proposed new primary structures must be congruous with the historic materials and finishes in the Pinehurst Historic District in terms of their composition, scale, pattern, detail, texture, finish, and color. The following materials are not permitted: sheets of plywood siding, vinyl or aluminum siding, plastic, sheet metal, or similar material used as siding or panels, any treatment of material that imparts a glossy or reflective finish to the material, concrete, cinder block, or glass block, and box chimneys. The proposed siding, again, is the board and batten as indicated, and the siding will be a composite engineered wood product that will imitate the look and feel of wood. And of course, these have been previously approved by the commission and are shown within the historic district. The proposed windows are vinyl, and vinyl windows are permitted within the historic district. Masonry, the elevations illustrate the use of the stonework as previously mentioned for some architectural accents at the front with the columns and the base of the windows on the right and are also permitted materials in the historic district. The roofing proposes to be a black metal roofing, and metal roofing is permitted for new residential construction in the historic district. Here's an image of the provided material sample board within the packet. Landscaping and vegetation. Additions or alterations to existing landscape, including plant material, hardscape, and accessory structures, must be compatible with the architectural character of the primary structure and be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant has submitted a landscape plan that is consistent and compliant with the Pinehurst Development Ordinance and would appear to be congruous with the Historic District. The removal of the trees 12 inches diameter breast height standard we have talked about must not unreasonably compromise the historic canopy. Based on the application, of course, there would be some tree removal included. It is unclear just how many and what impact it may have on the tree canopy. And here is the aforementioned landscape plan that's been provided by the applicant. And at this time, staff would like to formally enter the staff report presentation with correction and the applicant's material along with the draft findings of fact that have been forwarded to the commission last week.
Without objection, they will be admitted into the record. Thank you, Alex. Questions for Alex? Hearing none, we'll turn to the applicant. Mr. Degree, what would you like to say in support of your application?
One of the things that we would like to let you know is that the owner is a landscape architect from out of state, and he's been able to design this landscape plan by only removing 2 existing trees on the property. One that's in the driveway that we can't avoid, and one that's within the footprint of the house. So as far as the canopy, it will remain intact with the exception of 2 cedar trees. The house is showing stone. I'm looking at my little board here, and the stone sample's not on it. So I would have to get that to you. Other than that, I have this if anybody would like to see it. I do have a question for you. We are using a Pella product. The homeowner has asked when he gets here from Florida if he can go to the Pella showroom in Raleigh and take a look at their full product line. We have not picked an actual window yet. I've shown it as a vinyl window, but we may go up the scale with that, and we may end up with a clad window. But I had figured, for cost purposes, a vinyl window with GBG. Am I to understand that it is not allowed? It's not a snapping grill, but it's a grill between the glass. Because if that's the case, then I need to let him know, I need to let Pella know, and that'll sort of direct him into a different level window with Pella.
Answer is our guidelines do not prohibit that.
Okay? So I was just listening, I've been here since.
They prohibit the snap-in buttons, but not.
Okay, so we're fine with that if he decides to go that route. If he decides to go up to an architectural series, can that be a staff decision where we just say, look, we're going to use an aluminum clad window instead of a vinyl clad window, and here's a picture of it? It would only be an increase in quality based on the baseline that I have.
That's a staff question.
Well,
I would be all in favor of that.
If it is an upgrade, we could certainly approve the application with the proviso that there can be the upgrade to the aluminum clad window. Then,
And you could also, as a commission, you could
if
approve
the
both.
commission is prepared to do that.
Yeah. I would also suggest that if they want to do a better job of simulating divided lights, we'd certainly be in favor of that.
Yeah, and the only thing I could see that could be a problem with that is it may be a budgetary constraint. Prices, since he and I started the design of this house, have gone up almost $50 a square foot.
Plywood alone, or lumber alone, but it's everything.
Paying $40 for a sheet of OSB that was $10 6 months ago.
The
I'm
actual
in the
price of
wrong
the
line of
trees has
work.
not gone up. The finished product has.
Something's going up.
No, but the
Maybe the
gap,
glue and the OSB, I don't know.
gap between what sawmills are paying for trees and what they're charging for the finished product is at all historic wide.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions on materials, just to, and some of these may have changed. There's something here that the front door would be fiberglass, then there's something that says it's oak.
No, I don't know where it says it's oak. I don't think I put that anywhere. We tried not to do a wood door, if at all possible, because it equates to callbacks. Wood doors move with changes in temperature and humidity, and they warp, and you can't, if you stain them, you can't get anything on them that the sun won't burn off anymore. So it would be a fiberglass door.
I'm just trying to understand what we're being asked. So that this wood oak door is not correct, and the material is fiberglass. I did not see fiberglass mentioned positively or negatively in our approved list. Is that one of the things you mentioned that may not be a material that is consistent with the guidelines?
Not prohibited.
Yeah,
It's not mentioned. We're
Yeah,
silent on it.
it doesn't say it's not permitted.
And it is the material he listed on his material sheet.
And the roof, is this a seamed roof, flat metal roof?
It's a 26 gauge metal master rib. It's not a traditional standing seam.
Okay.
Only because I think that standing seam to me looks a little bit too commercial. That's just my opinion.
What shape is it?
It has, it's very similar. It has a hat on 12-inch centers, a profile. It's not a significant profile. But the major difference between that roof and the standing seam roof is that the fasteners are visible. They're on the flat, and they're color matched, but they're visible.
I don't think we speak to that.
What's the
We
height
talk
of-
about the height of the seam and the width of the seam.
Yeah, I think the seam is about an inch in height.
And how wide?
And the width, maybe 5/8. I can get you a sample if necessary.
Our guideline is 1 1/4 wide.
It's standing seam.
Yeah, that's the only way you're going to get that quarter.
And on some of the actual drawings, it talks about a stacked stone fence in the future, but you've applied for and have on the materials list an E-Pay. I also couldn't tell, Alex, where the fence was going to be
The stacked
located.
stone is on the landscape plan. You look at the front near the street, there's a dry-laid stacked stone wall 12 to 8 inches high above grade in a future phase. And so my homeowner, being a landscape architect, wants some control over that.
But
And
we're
so-
not being asked to approve that now. That's in his future plan.
That's correct.
Where's the E-Pay fence going?
The E-Pay is a courtyard fence. If you look at the first floor plan, you will see it's in the front.
Which exhibit, please?
The drawing's A3 and the drawing's A1. A1 shows the fence at the bottom right of the sheet, and it is sort of a dashed line there at the front elevation showing where it would go. And then if you look on A3 on the floor plan, you can see it creates the sense of a courtyard for him in the front. It's only 3 feet high.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm just looking for clarification there. I have nothing further.
Are we ready for a motion?
Are we even back to us yet, or are we still
We've
addressing?
been asked for public input.
Oh, that's right. I There's one other person in, I think you're waiting for your own case, sir? You're not waiting to be heard in this case? Thank you.
I have a question for Alex, or the commissioners, actually. In standards, there's a list of colors for metal roofs, which does not include black, does include dark gray.
The reference guideline,
A,
A5?
yeah, A5.
Gotcha. Okay, so, metal roofs, this is for the benefit of folks here that can't pull it up record. Metal roofs should be compatible with the architecture of the existing structure, and the material should be copper or one of the following colors: weathered copper color, dark brown, dark bronze, dark gray, dark green, or dark silver. So black is not included.
Is that a deal killer?
I would have to discuss that with my client, obviously. That it's not uncommon right now for everything to be black and white on a house. I just built one on Linden Road for myself, and it's black and white. We're not in historic district, but it must be more than 50% of everything that we've got in the field right now is black and white. He's gray, and if I tell him that black is not an appropriate color, there is a dark charcoal gray that I'm going to guess will be fine with him. But I need to have that conversation with him. I can't make that decision for him. I mean, let me ask you a question. If he determined that he would rather have a fiberglass architectural shingle in black, that would be approved?
And
Black shingles are
let's-
appropriate.
Black?
If we look back at the guideline that was referenced, of course, it does have that terminology "should" located in it. It's been a topic of conversation. Furthermore, it is located within Section 3, which is changes to existing structures, not for new single-family construction.
Do we have a list of approved colors for metal roofs that do apply?
Add that to our large list that we need to work on.
Don't have that.
If it's not in Section 4, it wouldn't apply.
I stand corrected.
So the black shingles would work, correct?
Well, the black would work for that matter. It's in the wrong section. Or I
Oh,
should
okay,
say, it's
so-
not in the right section.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no prohibition against the black for new construction,
For metal,
for black metal.
so he can have his black metal.
Can have his black metal.
Good. Right. And we still have the issue of an upgrade being covered by our approval.
For me, I think we can wordsmith that.
Okay?
Yeah, and to clarify that, it was a question of whether or not that's something administrative staff could handle if it came about after visiting the showroom. So if it would be a change in material, we wouldn't be allowed to handle that administratively, so.
Could approve both, right?
Yeah, a condition to allow for both materials.
We would approve the plan as submitted with the proviso that at the applicant's option, it could be upgraded as we would describe.
So long as they're not snap-in muntins,
Right, right,
either case, which I don't think there would be in the upgrade case anyway.
right.
I would be prepared to make a motion if there's no further discussion.
I think we're ready.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 125 Kelly Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with Historic District guidelines based on the testimony given, the materials submitted, and the findings of fact. However, the approval is under the assumption that the windows are vinyl as proposed and do not include snap-in muntins, and the owner would have the option to upgrade to a higher grade aluminum clad window should they desire, again, not with snap and muttons.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes.
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 Second motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 125 Kelly Road.
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none. Tom?
Yes.
Eric, yes.
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 Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you.
Nice design, by the way. That's going to be a real great house.
Well, thank you.
All right, and we have one case remaining, 70 Maple Road.
Previously indicated I'm recusing myself.
If you wish.
Yes.
Yes. Sure, that's fine.
Appreciate your patience.
All right, will you state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Yes, my name is Jason, last of Tanner, Tanner.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. We'll get started with you in just a moment.
I can go ahead and kick this off if we're ready.
Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you. And again, appreciate everyone's time and patience this evening. So the final request for this commission tonight is for COA 2021-00050. And this is to consider exterior modifications, including the addition of a covered porch, addition and removal of multiple doors to both the primary and accessory structures, replacement of lap siding with cedar shake siding on both the primary and accessory structures, and modification to the existing roof line of the primary structure. And this is all to subject property 70 Maple Road, which is further identified by Moore County PIN number 856-209-075493. As indicated by the sworn, have been swearing in, the property owner is Mr. Jason Tanner, and the applicant is once again Dan Degree of Step 1 Design. Here's our public hearing notification map. You get familiar yourself with the area. Subject property here, 70 Maple, bordered on both sides by Spur Road and Maple, and of course at the intersection of Community Road. This is considered major work, and review by the commission is required because there's proposing replacement of architectural details that changes the design of materials from the existing details. Changes of roof lines are also proposed, and eliminating or adding windows or doors, and of course resurfacing buildings with different materials from which was already currently on the structure. Here is some information that has been provided to you in the staff report, as in this slide, kind of breaking down all the proposed improvements and remodels with this request before you, broken down by which elevation and on which structure. Applicable guidelines for the request before us for roofs in Section 3, again, changes to existing residential structures, Any changes or additions to the configuration of an existing roof shall be compatible with the architectural style of the existing structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant is proposing 2 changes to the configuration of the existing roof. As shown on the submitted and proposed elevations, the applicant is proposing the addition of a gable above the covered porch on the front of the structure and the addition of a covered entry on the left side of the structure. The addition of the gable appears to match and complement the style of the existing gable on the structure, and this covered entry that's proposed appears to be similar to others found within the historic district. Exterior walls and trim. Any changes or additions to an exterior wall, such as window or door openings, bays, vents, balconies, or chimneys, must be compatible with the architecture of the structure and must be congruous with the character of the Pinehurst Historic District. Based on the submitted material, the existing siding of all structures on site will be replaced, and the existing siding is lap, with the proposed being a hardy shake siding. The proposed material mimics the characteristics of wood siding, and of course, shake siding is very common within the historic district. Windows and doors. Adding new window or door openings or altering or filling existing openings should not compromise the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District. With this proposal, the applicant is proposing to remove and add multiple windows to the primary and the accessory structures. Based on the provided drawings, the proposed windows and doors on the proposed elevations appear to be similar to others in the historic district. Glass block windows are not appropriate and have not been proposed with this proposal before us tonight. Of course, the painted, tinted, or film on windows on street-facing elevations are not appropriate, and based on the submitted material, is not indicated that that is proposed. Sliding glass doors are not permitted on street-facing elevations. Sliding glass doors are proposed on the right side elevation, which of the accessory structure, which would be a street-facing elevation. Porches, entrances, and balconies. New porches, entrances, and balconies or alterations to those on street-facing elevations must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure and must be congruous with similar elements in the Pinehurst Historic District. The applicant is proposing to modify and renovate the existing front porch of the property, and as a result, the proposed renovation would include new railings, a new brick foundation, and a new porch roof line. For decks and patios and changes to existing structure, Section 3, the addition of a deck or patio must not obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features of a primary or accessory structure and must be congruous with the character of the Pinehurst Historic District. A patio is proposed, added to the existing accessory structure in the rear yard, and of course, rear yard patios are quite common in the historic district. Paint and stain colors for exterior walls and architectural elements and details, and et cetera, must be compatible with the architectural character of the structure, and further must be congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and should be within the approved color palette. The exterior colors selected are all compliant with and consistent with these guidelines. Fences, again, not to go over much more about how we measure fence height and what located in what applicable yard. The plans that were submitted include the addition of a 4-foot black aluminum fence in the rear yard to enclose a pool, which is not proposed. Correct?
Pool's existing.
The pool's existing, so it's to enclose the existing pool that doesn't have, there's existing.
It has a fence now
existing
that,
fencing there.
it's deteriorated to the point where it needs to be replaced.
So this proposed 4-foot tall black aluminum fencing is compliant with the historic guidelines. And again, the removal of trees at 12 inches diameter breast height, the applicant has indicated that tree removal, of course, with this proposal would be part of the project. Again, it's unclear with the proposed material what type of impact that would have on the historic canopy on the site. Here's the site plan, subject pool just referenced. You can see the hatched areas for the proposed changes and alterations of the additions and roof line changes. Elevations that were provided and included in the packet. To the left would be the existing, and to the right would be the proposed, and this is for the primary structure, labeled as existing Exhibit C and proposed as Exhibit F in the submitted material. Same for the accessory structure, existing elevations labeled as Exhibit D, and the proposed elevations labeled as Exhibit G. All right, and with that, we'll come to a conclusion of the staff's presentation and formally include the staff report, this presentation, the applicant's material, and the draft findings of fact which have been previously forwarded to the commission into the record.
Thank you. Without objection, they will be received into the record. Are there any questions for Alex?
Alex, I noticed there's the proposed patio will lie across the existing building setback. Does that not apply to new patio construction? There's an existing building which undoubtedly predated the setback, but
I'm trying to pull up the site plan right now. Dan may be able to speak to that. Is that is it
Exhibit.
shown, is it the primary building setback? or is
no,
it the accessory?
it's on the pool cabana, I guess, or the outbuilding.
So, yeah, so if you see, there's about a 4.23-foot setback currently on that building, so it is non-conforming. So with that proposed patio there, that non-conformity would not be increased. It would not further encroach into that already non-conforming setback.
No, my question are we still allowed to, are they allowed to actually construct new construction which would, of the patio which runs across the building setback?
It would, because again, that non-conformity would not be increased more so than what it already is.
Thanks.
Question, Alex. I thought I heard you say there was a sliding door on the accessory building, and I can't find such a thing. I
There
can
isn't.
see, there is not.
Right there.
It's shown in the right side elevation.
Like sliding, but it's not. It's a swinging door in the middle with two fixed side lights.
That's correct.
Not a sliding door.
Does the sliding door face the pool?
There's no sliding door on property. We're not adding one.
You're not doing that?
No, sir. It's a patio door. 3-panel, 2 fixed, 1 operable, and the operable's a swing.
That must have changed since the application was submitted.
Has not.
Well,
Doesn't exist. I'm just correcting Alex.
we're reading something that's not there. Okay,
Not a sliding door, I'm confused.
not sliding, yeah.
So item 3, accessory structure, that does not exist.
Accessory structure exists. The door that we're putting in it that faces the street is not a sliding door.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of things going on in this application that are in the direction that we like to see, materials being non-conforming replaced with conforming and what have you. It's a nice plan.
Yeah.
I used to live not too far from here, and it'd be a really nice change.
Looking good.
Houses in a row, really nice.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready for a motion? Oh, excuse me. There's nobody else here to speak in this case, so I will take official notice that this is the end of the testimony in this case. Who would like to make a motion?
I can do that.
Okay, Terry's going to make a motion.
I move that the Historic Preservation Commission find the proposed major work at 70 Maple Road congruous with the Pinehurst Historic District and consistent with historic district guidelines based on the testimony given, the material submitted, and the findings of fact.
Second.
And motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? I will poll the commissioners. Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed major work at 70 Maple Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Eric, yes?
Yes.
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 Congratulations, you have your certificate of appropriateness.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our public hearing. May I have a motion to close the public hearing and return to the regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. We are now into the... This is a public meeting, and you are all welcome to stay and observe, but only members of the commission and its staff may speak.
I don't blame you.
All right, we have before us
Work list.
minor work and staff approvals. Everybody, I assume, has had an opportunity to review those documents. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none. Is there any other business? I have one thing I'd like to raise, not necessarily to decide right now. We need to have a work session at the earliest available moment to revise the guidelines into standards, required to do by statute. We had made some significant progress last calendar year, but we have more work to do. And I would request that staff give serious consideration to scheduling a work session. And do we have any idea how many cases we're going to have next month? Alex?
I think there may be one in the queue at this point. Obviously, the way the Thursdays fall between April to May, we still have 2 weeks from today to have our formal deadline, so a little premature at this point. We could
One
have-
in addition to the one that was continued?
Correct.
Requested for, so maybe two.
At this point, with 2 weeks still to go.
So we could have a work session either in early May, before the scheduled hearing, or in early June, after the scheduled hearing. I don't know what people's vacation schedules are, but we have to work around that in any event. So, Alex, we would appreciate everything that you can do to get something scheduled so that we can move forward on the guidelines. That's all the new business that I have. Does anybody else have anything?
Alex, do you have any thoughts on that now? I mean,
I'm looking at my calendar right now. I know May 6th will be not a good day for me. May 11th will not be. May 20th would not be.
May 27th is all right.
Yeah, I mean, that is already nailed down as a date, right? And I plan to be here.
Oh, good.
So we got like the 13th,
13th of what?
May?
Yeah, I was thinking in that week, but earlier, after Mother's Day Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week. 13th does not happen to work for me, unfortunately,
Okay,
in that
that's
week.
fine. I can do any of them that day as long as it's.
Put
not
out a
first thing
couple
in the morning.
dates and we'll respond.
And we would have to make sure we could secure a meeting room space as
Yes,
well.
and you obviously have to, consult your own responsibilities because you have other things that you have to do, but.
This has been, obviously, this is a topic of pretty immediate concern right now.
Agreed,
so.
agreed. And we will all do whatever we possibly can to make ourselves available.
Alex, I have maybe an impossible request. Can I get either preferably a Word document of the entire guideline?
I think we may have that. I just have to double check and make sure it's the most updated version.
That'll help me do my red marking.
And I do know
It'd be
there
good
is.
for all of us, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Understand.
I'd certainly find that useful.
Okay.
So if you find it for one, send it to all of us.
I have one other comment
Sure.
one other comment that came up at the last minute this time, understanding the difficulty the staff is going through based on shorthandedness and so forth. The legibility of drawings at 8.5 by 11 sometimes just, so we need either bigger prints or at least an online version that can be zoomed into.
And that is an easy request, and that's something else we need to probably consider with our guidelines. We could maybe be a little more specific to submission requirements. Now with the checklist, there's if legible 11 by 17 or some language like that. Kathy has been working very diligently to propose some amendments to the Pinehurst Development Ordinance relative to e-permitting. And so our submission requirements are going to in our appendices of the development ordinance are going to reflect the type of format and what we're going to need and require for that is we have been, well into implementation of our online permit center. So we're trying to move to a more digital format. And it's taken some time, noticeably so, because a lot of us still like hard copies and to mark things up, et cetera. And you guys have previously expressed you like something in hand when you're visiting the site. So think about that, think about some ideas of what we could place in the guidelines to kind of help shore up what we expect from the applicant, because really that burden should be on them and not on administrative staff reproducing and printing. How many copies or how many pages was last week's? Which adds a couple hours to getting the stuff to you guys.
And I have no issue on small things, a window replacement, thing like that. We don't, I can look at that on anything and make sense of it. But when you're coming to new construction with a whole layout of a floor plan, and you try to crunch that down to 8.5 by 11, it becomes almost totally, I mean, there were several times I had to take the ones in here and go underneath a magnifying glass to be able to make sure it was 21 or 11, just to make that kind of difference. And that just is miserable for anybody that.
Yeah, the pages with 4 elevations all on a single page. I don't know if they were 8.5 by 11 to start with and we shrunk them, or if they were produced in that format, but I find them very difficult to read in most cases.
And then we need to fix that.
I'm not trying to create more paper or more duplication, but if we can't read it, it's not very useful.
And there again, if we put, and I know this was with, especially when I was the primary staff with the HPC, we required 10 copies.
Yeah.
You provide, the applicant provides us 10 copies and needs to be full-size set if it's a new construction, or if you're providing floor plans or elevations, they need to be larger. So, we need to start thinking about how we can maybe put some language in the guidelines if that's the desire.
Yeah, and if you're working on it for the planning and zoning, I mean, let's not redesign the elephant either.
And a lot of that is strictly for digital submittals solely. So if that were the case with this, then if you still wanted the printed copies, then we're back at the staff.
If we get decent digital that we can zoom into and look at, that's another story too. But if you got to mess around and you can't zoom into it, then that don't work either.
Yeah, some of them, and David was able to pin me down this morning. He was one of the few that got me on the phone. But for whatever reason, within our internal drive, we had clear PDFs which were forwarded out via Jill to you guys. The ones that were uploaded into the online Novus agenda were like reproduction scans of those. So the resolution, when you zoomed those in, you could not read it.
That's what I mean. We got to get consistent with those kind of things so that we can,
And in situations like the shadow box fence, where there's a specific requirement of width and overlap and what have you, that should be part of what they are expected to provide, because we're going to ask every time.
Or dimensions.
Yeah.
Right, metal roofs. Is it seamed, and what's the size? Because we're going to ask every time.
I have one other comment. We've done a really good job of banishing the word guideline from the written standards. Can we also just not use the word guideline in any of the materials, the staff reports?
Absolutely. We're going to, we need to.
Should go to,
Yeah.
I would suspect, if the statute's changing.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't require any of our effort, just don't use the word. Do a search for the word and replace it with standard.
Well, it should be. Effective
Thank
July
you.
1st.
Problem is that the document that exists now says guidelines, so when we refer to this,
Well,
it's-
most
when we get through,
of
Make our
this,
change,
it will become
and the
standards.
village approves that change, it will all say standards.
I think the key thing we're also working on our 160D updates, which are due by July 1st, kind of across the board. The key thing is, even if we don't have the update in place, the statute controls. So by July 1st, they're standards, regardless of what we've named them.
Yeah,
They'll
but
be
our
referred to as
paperwork
standards.
should show that if that's what we're doing. I mean,
We should
That's
try to
why we
it shouldn't
conform.
be a huge problem to change it. I mean, a search and find and replace, or find and replace. would get 99% of them across the whole document.
Motion to adjourn, question mark?
I will entertain such a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned
Thank you.
until May 27th at 4 PM.